I'll declare the meeting open. Apologies, I think Councillor Manji for lateness. I don't think he's absent today. I'll move that, seconded by Aaron Kewen. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Declarations of interest, none. We haven't got any public participation today. Presentation of petitions, there are none. And now I move on to the Waihoro Spraden Cashmere Community Board Report to Council, and invite Carolyn Potter. And Melanie and Chris. Nice to see you in your new role, Chris.
Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I think this is the first time that we have been first up. We've been allocated first up before, but gazumped by some of the people behind us. But this is the first time. No comment. We have a Part A, which is of itself as a triumph, and behind me is sitting Diane, the chairperson, and Sonia, the secretary of the Spraden Neighbourhood Network, who have been instrumental in this Part A coming to council, together with Dennis, right there. And they have fought the fight for this and have been out there in the public, counting the cars, looking at the accidents, watching the roads, talking to the staff, constantly on our backs over the last 3-4 years, but actually the history of this is 20 years. And we are delighted that it is now coming to council.
They also come to every board meeting we have now.
Yes, they have a rotating roster coming to every board meeting.
Brilliant.
They're especially interested in our technology. You're first up now.
Oh, oh yes. So,
no, I should say something about it, shouldn't I? Thanks, Barrington Mall has had a right-hand turn out onto Barrington as well as a left-hand turn for its existence. Even at the beginning, everyone knew it was going to be a problem. It also has a exit from the mall, which includes a acknowledged footpath to the local, especially to the local library, and it causes a lot of chaos between pedestrians, older people, people with disability, the exit from the mall and the entrance to the mall onto a very busy street with exits and buses, car parks and all sorts of things surrounding it. It has been the cause of some dramas over the years, and it has been a long-standing issue, and we look forward to its conclusion. Sorry, Mel.
Right, so Hoonhay flooding issues. There's it's not as huge as anything like the Heathcote, but there's a little bit of flooding that has been over the years. It's sort of got worse since the earthquakes in Weir Place in Hoonhay, which is quite close to the Heathcote River, and also Copenhagen Place and Marion Street. They don't get flooding over their floor, but they do get it quite a lot all over their properties, and we had a meeting about a year ago about that for the community, and then tonight we'll be having a follow-up meeting because the staff has sort of looked into what they can or cannot do and produced a memorandum about that, so we'll find out today what the residents have to say in response to it. Yep, Hoonhay Fiesta. When was this? So it was the 15th of November. It was a Thursday before show day. We had Hoonhay Fiesta, which we have every year, and this year was really amazing because we had a whole lot more schools come along to do presentation or to do performances, singing and all sorts of cultural festival type stuff that they have decided to do at the Hoonhay Fiesta. So it meant a whole lot of more schools came along than other years, and it just had a really great vibe to it basically. And Yeah.
I think we should point out that we had 9 schools that coming, and the reason for their coming was that the cultural festival that used to be held in the town hall has now got too expensive for some schools, and they're actually choosing to come to Hoonhay. So there's a certain sadness and a certain joy about it. And the other thing about the fiesta, and which the staff have put a lot of work into, including community development and how to run a fiesta, they've done a lot of community development with the people who are the volunteers at the fiesta on how to run these kinds of things, including how to MC a stage and how to do traffic management and so on. So it is a real community development effort, the Hoonhay Fiesta. Secondly, we have now attached to it the Pacific Series, which is rugby league teams from across Christchurch representing Pacifica Māori and Pākehā and other communities coming to the Hoonhay Pacific Series to play rugby league. And I went down and watched, for example, the Pacific New Guinea team, who were mostly made up of university students, and unfortunately they were getting absolutely thrashed by some older players from other areas in the Pacific, but they were enjoying it nonetheless. And I spoke to the woman on the sideline from Pacific New Guinea and was learning about, for instance, the fact that there's 1,800 languages in Papua New Guinea, and there was one woman on one side of me who could speak 6 of them, and another woman on the other side of me who could speak 3 of them. So it's a great thing to have, the Pacific Series. This is predator-free. This is predator-free again, which is operating very successfully in our ward. Jeremy Agar thought the idea up years before the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, and it now seems to have reached a real tipping point in terms of the enthusiastic way the community is taking it up. And you can see there, in that part of the park, they were actually building predator-free traps. I have to say, in a very modest way, that my son was running this event. And that was supported financially by the board as well.
We sprayed the school pool opening, so they opened officially like a year ago, and we've told you the story before about how they'd built their pool and it got destroyed in the earthquakes, and then they fundraised up to about $1 million, isn't it, to rebuild it. So they've reopened again, and as part of that, we're supporting giving keys as well to people in the community so they can come and use the pool over the summer. So hopefully it gets a bit warmer, although yesterday was pretty good, but yeah. So that was really cool just to go along to that and just see that they're continuing all their good work.
And the St Albans School community, who are trying to raise funds for the rebuild of their pool, might like to talk to these organisers. This pool and another attached children's pool and disability access to this pool and the changing sheds was built for just over $1 million, fundraised by the school. And we know that St Albans, being a public pool, will have different constraints on them in terms of the things that they will have to install that a school pool may not have, but they might like to talk to Dwayne Majors and the school committee about how they did it, because it is substantially less, their budget was substantially less than that budget. The Addington Fair, this year we weren't Tweedledee and Tweedledum. The Malthouse Theatre Company lost a hat and we were Tweedledum and Tweedledum. And we spent our time consulting with the community on various issues about Addington, including the Lincoln Road and infill housing and road speeds and some of the issues that interest the community. As you know, the weather was appalling, but it wasn't that appalling. It was sort of mild weather, but drizzling. So the rock bands weren't as evident as they have been in past years, but nonetheless, this is an occasion that is hugely successful at St Mary's Church.
And the other Tweedledum is Sherilyn Davies from Minoka Cottage.
Yeah, the community cottage that's been built. Age Friendly continues. They have established in our ward the Age Friendly Action Plan. They have 4 starter priorities and collaborative groups were agreed. The issues that they are looking at are social isolation, participation, connection, transport, inclusiveness and health and wellbeing. And I continue to say to them that we must play to our strengths as older people, not just our perceived weaknesses, because older people are a vibrant, pertinent, active, involved a group of people that are not to be patronised as being frail and unwell and needing support. Crossover Trust.
Yep. So the Crossover Trust is in our ward area, and we've, as a board, supported that for as long as I've been around and beforehand. And they provide liaison workers for various schools like Rowley, West Braden and Addington to strengthen family and children's participation in education in the community and things like that. So we'd then given them some funding to do a evaluation report, and they came back to the board with a copy of that and explained about a lot of the work that they've been doing, and we want to get them back because there's so much information in there to try and take in, basically. And they've also got Origin Sport as well, so there's I can't remember his name, but there's people
Roy.
that are, well, not Roy, the other one, Greg, I think it is, who, yeah, but they do a lot of work with sport as well. And we also had Spraden Youth Community Trust 24/7 Youth Workers Program come back with an evaluation as well, and they just told us some different snippets of various sort of relatively specific things about different kids that they'd been achieving. So that was really cool to hear about what work they've been doing as well.
Manuka Cottage is starting to become a reality, and we hope will be built by next Christmas. It has been a long wait, 8 years out of their building, and the process has taken a long time, but we look forward to it.
Is that?
I didn't know this was going to be in there. That cake was made by Faye, who is our board advisor, who is there cutting the cake with me. This was our Christmas party. That photograph makes it look as though it wasn't crowded. It was absolutely crowded and great fun. Lots of really good, interesting people there. Lots of people we all know and love, and it was terrific atmosphere actually this year, wasn't it? Great atmosphere.
Fab photo.
And
there was a huge amount of food.
Huge amount of food prepared by the staff. They did such a fantastic job with the food, as you can see. They just did a great job, and the decorations and things. And have we got that photograph of Patana? We haven't got that photograph. That's it.
Good.
There's,
right, thank you.
What is it?
There's a short video from the Hoonhay Fiesta if you're happy for that. It's just a quick clip of some kids doing...
the first time you get to the front and you go over time, okay?
I know, sorry.
Just noting. All right. You turn the sound up. Oh.
Thank you, kids.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Since it's the last community board meeting of the year.
Thank you. I think it's really important to acknowledge the new owners of the Barrington Mall, because this has been going on for like 20 years. And poor Phil, my colleague here, has been involved in it for 20 years. I've only been involved in it for about 12. But the local community have been pushing and pushing. It's been an issue for 20 years. But the present owners of the Barrington Mall are far more open to working with communities, etc., and working with council. So I think it has to be acknowledged, because up till this present ownership model, it has been just a pain. But the new owners have actually really made it happen.
Yes, and you will have an opportunity to say so when we get to the paper. So, but you would like to move, Tim, that the report be received, and seconded by Phil, and I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carolyn. Te pātaka o rā kai hautu, Banks Peninsula Community Board report to Council. Pam Richardson.
I wondered why we didn't have our names, our joint names on our overheads here. We're trying to raise the profile of them, but they're not on any of our overheads. So the same with the other boards too. New Year, right.
Yeah. In the new year, all will be sorted.
Yes. So look, can I just take an opportunity of thanking the staff that we work with, particularly our board staff, our local staff and team. We have had a challenging year on Banks Peninsula, just like many boards will have had. Every board has challenging years, but I just want to acknowledge it at this time, the special support that we get from all of our teams, including the council staff, who we thoroughly enjoy sitting alongside council staff on Akaroa's Issues Working Party, road maintenance working parties, reserve management committees. We meet a huge lot of staff, so we take opportunities to network with them too. So just thank you for that support we were given. Also, if you look at our notes today, there's a whole range of issues, and you should notice that the popularity of our meetings, that the community comes along to talk to us about things. So we are very popular. So we just moved to the first one, which is update on the maintenance contract. So this is becoming a good news story. If you remember last meeting, Dave Adamson was sitting over in the back line there, and he took up the challenge to come and meet with us and bring along other staff to talk about it. So we have laid a bit of a plan ahead, what the board is expecting. That the contractors are going to attend, the contractors that are involved with the contractors on the peninsula will attend board meetings at some stage during the year. We haven't actually seen anyone of recent times that we can remember. Staff will inform the board of any new contact preparations, and we're looking for perhaps them to be broken down into smaller chunks so that our local community can pick up some of those contracts. And also asking the contractors to employ local people to be employed under their contracts. So we also asking staff will investigate mapping maintenance areas under contract to identify responsibilities and gaps in the service. Now this is the reserves, parks managers, and also the roading reserve contracts as well, so that we have a better idea of where those gaps are and to see who's involved with what. Staff will follow up with an extra parks manager for Banks Peninsula, and I think that's quite exciting news that someone locally has been appointed to that position. So we're delighted about that. It is a local person in our communities that's involved with that, so we're delighted about that. And park staff are going to monitor contracts closely and report to the board bi-monthly. So we've sharpened up the act, and hopefully we'll see some improvements around the community. Dave, I was just saying how we appreciated your support and what we were going to be doing moving forward. So the next one is about parking restrictions at the sign of the Kiwi. Now this is a very congested area. As you can see there's a little patch there of cars. And look, we welcomed having Carolyn at our meeting. We're delighted to have her at our meeting to talk about the issues that she had around the site. So it has been, the time restrictions have been approved from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is to allow some good parking there for the sign of the Kiwi. It's got no parking at all. It had no parking, dedicated parking around it at all. So this has improved it for that particular time. We want the CAF or the sign of the Kiwi, to be a viable operation, so it needed some parking. And it's also got a mobility park and a motorcycle park. And staff are going to monitor the demand and the vehicle movements and report back in May to the board. So it is a very busy area. The road is very busy, very congested, lots of walkers. It's just a high impact area. So the next one is about our Port Hills reserves and illegal tracks, of which we know it's not just to the Port Hills, it's everywhere. But we are, it's an area on Banks Peninsula where there is closed because of rockfall risk, and these illegal tracks are being built in this area. So park staff have been following up and are working to assure that any unsafe areas are marked and identified. So perhaps down the track it may be that we need to be looking at where are people allowed to go. We can't afford to have tracks everywhere on Banks Peninsula. Next one. Right, this is the case of the disappearing toilets. 1 minute they're there and 1 minute they've gone. But we've been addressing this issue of around the cruise ships and the toilets for quite some time. And we have promised the community that we would have additional toilets for the cruise ship season. It was originally thought that they would be perhaps there for a period of time and taken away at the end of the day, but that's not been practical. But now, I'm delighted to say that it's been resolved yesterday, that the toilets have reappeared again, despite there being two cruise ships on Saturday, when there were over 8,000 passengers, or 8,000 crew and passengers sitting out on the middle of the harbour. So it's the cruise ship season is frustrating a number in the community, and Andrew and I spoke at a meeting, or I attended and Andrew spoke at a meeting on Saturday, the Akaroa Civic Trust AGM, and it was an opportunity for the community to come along, and there was well over 100 people. You know, there are only 600 people in Akaroa permanents, so there were well over 100 people that had joined that meeting. So I think it shows the concern of our community of the cruise ships, and the toilets are just part of it, but there's a whole range of other issues that we need to resolve, and hopefully we're working more closely with the Council and Environment Canterbury to resolve some of those issues. Lovely picture of our old Akaroa Heritage Building, the Gaiety in Akaroa. It doesn't always look like that. I think that might be polished up a bit, but it's a lovely old building, and it unfortunately it's having some more repairs done on over the Christmas period. It's had scaffolding put up above it, around it, to replace floorboards. Oh no, the scaffolding's not for floorboards, but replacing weatherboards. The toilets some work has been done. The toilets, floorboards, and the roof. There's some work being done, and of course we need a possum management plan for that building because there's been possums in the roof just recently. So it needs some work done on it. But unfortunately, it's over the holiday period when people want to use it. And the council are working with the community to ensure that it can actually remain open, and so we need to watch that closely, what's going on. So it's also having a bit of a lighting upgrade because it's got such high lighting in the ceiling of the building, and you need scaffolding inside the building to do that, and it's having treatment for borer. So there are increasing numbers of people using the building, but it's just a bit of a hiccup having this sort of over the time when people do want to use it. This one is a good news story as well. It's around the activation at the Littleton Recreation Centre. I'm not quite sure whether you all know where that is. It's on a back street in Littleton, magnificent view, huge sports complex that the community has been challenged with. Use it or lose it, I would say, but get into gear and make sure you're using it more often. Take the opportunities along to look at what other opportunities you could use it. So over the last year, there's been a 50% increase in usage. So that's great. It has more use. There's volunteers at the desk of it. They're welcoming, and we're looking at a strategic plan being completed. And there's a proposal that the community-led organisation leads it to manage the centre into the future. So Project Littleton were awarded a community resilience partnership funding to activate the Littleton Centre to get all this underway. So it is a good news story. Things are taking place. So what's the next one? That's it. That's it. So I could talk about a whole lot more, but look, thank you very much for working with us over the year. It's been challenging. We look forward to working next year.
Aaron, Dion and Yanni.
Oh, it was just to follow on from that stunning image of the Gaiety Hall, that it is such an incredible looking building, but most people in Christchurch wouldn't know anything about it. And each year they have the Bird of the Year competition. I think the council should have within our own region the Building of the Year, and they compete, and each ward puts them forward what they think are the best ones, and because that way it would highlight some of the incredible work that's been done, especially post-quake, because there's a massive amount of incredible buildings that no one knows about. So why own them if we don't celebrate them? So it's just a suggestion going forward when you see an image like that.
Lovely, thank you. Dion?
Was the work that is going on now in the Gaiety not
Yes.
done when they had its earthquake repairs?
No. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be integrated at the same time, which is very unfortunate. So it's sort of muddled up for 2 periods of time.
Is anybody looking into why that is?
Well, I imagine it'll be just the same as other things. It'll be budgeting factors. The funding wasn't available at the same time. We are disappointed, but that's the reality of it. We have to work with it.
Yeah, I think we should follow up on that because
I would like to follow up on that because it's silly.
You know, I mean, it sounds like, you know, deja vu all over again. We've already learnt that lesson from the skirt mechanisms that didn't look at the wider issues. They only covered what they were funded to cover. And I don't actually recall any decision being brought to us to try and amalgamate the 2 projects. So, but let's follow up on that. I don't know that we need a resolution to do it. If perhaps if Anne, you could take a note of that and
I'll do that.
Report back on it. That would be great. Thank you, Yanni.
Yeah, thank you for your report. Really glad to hear the maintenance issues are getting better. Just in 6.3, I just wondered what we can do as a council. I'm just reading about your Black Cat building, and I see that I think in July you asked that it be removed, the structures be removed in 3 months, and it hasn't happened. So is there anything that you need us to do to help out on that situation?
Staff are dealing with it at the moment. It is a complex issue, and at the moment staff are dealing with it. So I think we're reasonably happy with it, the progress it's taking. It's in a complex site. The wharf is owned by us. There's the Black Cat is on over an area that's administered by Environment Canterbury, so it's just a complex issue that we need to work with, and the district plan doesn't relate to some of it, and some area of it does, but we're working through it, and the City Council team have it under control.
Right, so when do you expect the non-consented structures to be removed? Do you have a time frame?
All I know is that the staff are working through it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you once more for all that you do. You're, you know, it's just fabulous, and I really appreciated I saw the coverage in the news on Saturday night about the meeting that was held in Akaroa, and then to talk through, the response from staff to try and address those issues going forward, I think is helpful. Just a little bit sooner might have been better, but we're onto it, so it's really good.
Thank you. We now need to address issues in Littleton so that we're all looked after and managed well for the cruise industry and other tourism opportunities.
I agree. So, Andrew, you'd like to move the report?
Yep.
Seconded by Dion. I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Right, the next one is Waitai Coastal Burwood Community Board. Tim Money and Joe Wells. Welcome.
Good morning, Leanne. Good morning, councillors, staff and community. Of course, as Leanne's just said, we've got Joe Wells here, Governance Manager, helping me, and I'd just like to just say hi to Tim, who's actually watching us live today. Tim's been very sick for the last month, but we're missing you here, Tim, so we hope that you recover very quickly.
So shall we all just say hi, Tim?
Hi, Tim. Hi, Tim.
Good on you, thanks.
And test him on this afterwards.
Cheer up far quicker. You'll love it. That's great. We've got no parties today, as is a fairly brief report. I do have a wee video which is really lovely at the end. I just want to highlight the first picture that we have up here. We've had a couple of bus stops come in and go, and I just want to say that Brenda has done an amazing job. Glenn and I met Brenda out there, as you all will have known. When you have a bus stop issue, when Brenda's over it, she is all over it, and it was really good just to check the site out, and it's outside the Alpine View Lifestyle Village, and we believe that this is going to make a really good connection for this community and for the residents in there, and we're delighted it will connect with the Burwood Hospital and also the QE2 and the Palm, so very pleased to see that that's going to be going in there soon. So thanks Brenda for meeting us there, it was great, but you'll see other things that we've, decisions we've made under our delegations, which you can just read, which I'm sure you already have. The Christchurch hot pools, this is fantastic. We've got a picture up there at the moment. I can assure you it does not look like that at the moment. We've got, the one that I've actually got is the site that
I think somebody reported it had already been done.
Oh, I heard that. I saw that. Yeah, there's a bit on Facebook about it.
I don't know why.
Yeah. So it's exciting because, well, sadly, firstly, the old whale needed to be demolished, and I was there and I heard what it sounded like when the big scissors sort of went in to grab it, and it was just paper mache. It basically was just the chicken wire with some plaster, and it disintegrated. It was very rusty, so good call there. So good that we had that clone. Also, it really looks like a demo yard now. When you come down Hawke Street, you can literally see the sea, because part of the old sea wall has had to be removed for the new coastal hazards protection. But very exciting that this project is now beginning, so thank you all for being part of that. Really do appreciate that. Otakaro Avon River Corridor project, this is great, another project that's good to see that we're now in the final stages of the feedback, and that closes on the 19th of December, and the board will be submitting our thoughts shortly. Now, the most exciting, like all the other community boards, the events and things that we have in our area coming into the summer months, there are quite a lot. The Rockabilly one is just an amazing event that happens out there. In November we had, there was about 15,000 people that attended. There's a open field there that's just chock-a-block with all these extremely interesting cars. There's also the Rockabilly dance and things, but I intended to pop down for half an hour and ended up being there 2 hours because you bump into all these people, but good on them for this event. The other thing that we've got on this weekend is the opening, which is very exciting, of the Anzac Fire Station. So they have an official opening this Saturday, and they're going to put on things like opportunity for families to meet the crew, receive advice on smoke alarms, and take part in an evacuation challenge. There will also be a physical competencies assessment on offer for the children. So that's a really exciting day for the crew in the fire station there at Anzac. The New Brighton Seaside Christmas Parade, that's on again this year as always, and it's just amazing. That was obviously one of the floats from Christmas. That's not our community board float. We were quite as interesting or fun as that one. But no, it's really good. It's on this Saturday at the corner of Marine Parade and Hawke Street at 10:30, and the market will also be happening at the same time. Residents Association Forum, this is something that we've been doing now for a year, maybe 2 a year, and really well received by the Residents Association. We meet 4 times a year. Our staff just do a wonderful job coordinating it. This was an evening that we had, and I think that's Jackie up there explaining a few things there about the Q2 Master Plan, but it is really something that the Residents Associations appreciate, because it's all about them and what they would like to hear or see from us and how we can communicate and coordinate things a lot better. So any topics of the relevance to them, but the part that they really love the most is the networking that they do amongst themselves, and they get good ideas and encouragement from each other. The next event we have is the Affirm, which was on Saturday, and sorry I couldn't make it, but there's a very famous lady up there, other than herself, who worshipped the mayor kicking it off by the look of it. So
my husband didn't undo his jacket because he didn't think that pink was his colour.
Could have said it's purple, but great event. I was there the other year,
pink.
But it was so good. But actually, I wasn't there because my daughter went into labour, so that was why I was not there that morning. Otherwise, I would have been. So hence, we've had a little baby girl. So that's very exciting.
I'll have a copy of the picture, please.
This is an event that is.
It's a fabulous picture. It makes me look skinny and tall.
That's an actual photo.
If you could just send it through. That's going in my monthly report.
Yeah, it's great. We'll keep that photographer on, shall we? Okay, board matters of interest. Burwood, Avondale and Dallington Community Group. This is a group that's been going for some time now. We call it the BAD group because of the acronym. They meet monthly, supported by our board staff and board members, and the group are currently organising 3 community events for early in the new year, one for each area and one that will be combined in March, which is great for this area because there hasn't seen a lot of action around there since the earthquakes. So the Burwood, Avondale and Dallington areas have dramatically reduced community space as a result of the earthquakes and lost a huge amount of their land and the houses in there. So the BAD group are completing a feasibility study and business plan in regards to a combined community hub. The need for such a facility is becoming increasingly apparent. We're getting more and more deputations to the community board and up through other communications about this, so an urgent need there, but they're being proactive, which is really good to see them doing. So I don't normally wear t-shirts to the board, but I've got my New Brighton project t-shirt on today, which they sell because the video that we've got later is showcasing the New Brighton project. And these t-shirts and others are sold at the market. You're probably more used to the one that says I love New Brighton with the big red heart. So the board just recently received a deputation or an update from the New Brighton project about all the wonderful things that they do. The highly successful seaside market, which attracts people from all over the city every Saturday. They also have a blanket bank, which provides blankets and bedding packs to a range of agencies across the city. They have a new newsletter called The Wave, which is more like a book, but it's got a fantastic resource for people that come into the community. And they also have welcome packs, which they put all this information about the area, and which I know other wards do as well, which is awesome. They also organise a Santa parade. So, and as I say, we've got a wee video on that in shortly. The next video, this is fantastic. These kids, the Keep Christchurch Beautiful team, manager Linda Keel and chair Alexandra Davies do a wonderful job with this organisation, inspiring our young children to get stuck in and have these green fingers, and I tell you, they really do. So in our ward, there were various awards given out. There were so many, actually, they had to be done all in an instant. Rather than doing them individually. But for in our area, we had the Banks Ave School, Marshland School, New Brighton Catholic School, Parkview School, Queen's Park School, Rafferty School, St James School and Waitakere. And we're very proud of these schools and very proud of these students. It was a really lovely afternoon. So that wraps up my report, but happy Christmas everybody before we do the video. Have a safe holiday. It's been a great year. Again, thanking our staff and Joe for helping me this year. We're always telling our staff that they're gold. And thanks for working with us and listening and receiving our projects and doing the best you can. So we've got a wee video.
Ooh. Thank you.
It was the original song, by the way, too, created by one of Margaret's friends. So yeah.
So she's a local?
I think so.
Yeah. Great. It was fantastic. Very perfect words and, sentiment for the images that it showed. So thank you very much. All right. So David, Glenn, move and second the receipt of the report. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those. Sorry.
Just one issue, if I may.
Yeah. Well, I can't stop.
Oh, okay.
Debate.
I won't
Carry
take
on.
up time. No, just over the temporary usage of the Avon or Takaro area, just to let you all know that we had already initiated with our staff a process by which to get the various parties on board, Regen, LINZ, our own council staff, to try and sort out the temporary use issues, because some of the communities around the river aren't hearing about them in time. So I just want you to know that, because I'm aware someone else has instigated a process, but we'd already started that. So, but we've been cut out of that process.
Sorry, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I wish you'd raised that before. I thought you wanted to debate the motion.
No.
No.
But I'm passing on this information. I think, yes, the board, yeah.
So the community board's got a process for transitional use.
Yes, well,
and you worked it out with LINZ, presumably. Sorry? You worked it out with LINZ.
Yes, we have started that. We started that some time ago.
Right.
And with reaching.
Yeah, because there's more than one community board that's involved in the residential.
Yeah, this is for Burwood, Avondale, and Dallington. In terms of existing community groups that still live along the river corridor.
Yeah, okay. Well, we might need to have a discussion around that, because I know that you would have seen some advertising in the paper in relation to the future governance arrangements for the residential red zone and for the Otakaro Avon River corridor. I think that there's potentially a connection between future governance arrangements and what sort of arrangements you'd want to put in place for transitional use as well, because the transitional may become more than transitional,
right?
Because it may be a trial that then leads to a permanent potential use, and there are all sorts of issues that need to be resolved around land ownership and those sorts of things. And I was quite taken, in a positive way, with the idea of some form of community trust that is able to sort of take that role. To me, that's really local leadership at the most fundamental level. So. Yeah, but it's not. It would be no surprise to anyone that I would have that view. I've often expressed my view around the issue of localism and subsidiarity and making decisions closest to where they belong. Yeah. So, all right. So I'll put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And could now I invite members of the Waimairo, Fendleton Waimairi Harewood Community Board to the table. Well, they managed to be Waimairo. So.
All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the chance to present our final report for the year. I thought before I begin, I'll just introduce our new Community Governance Manager. That's Sam too, Sam Callender. So we call ourselves Sam Squared, and he's the good Sam. I'm the difficult Sam, by the sounds of it. So. Yeah. Hey, look, I thought I'd just touch on a couple of things in the presentation, if you just want to click through to the first one. Firstly, to update you on Roto Kahatua Reserve. We've been doing a lot of work with the staff on that, and it's really good to get, as we approach summer, or I guess we're now in summer, a really good outcome there to develop some stuff around Lake Rua. So that'll include, obviously, enabling vehicle access to the car park, enlarging that car park a wee bit, looking around the access road, and then installing a wee bit of signage. And I mean, Aaron Kuhn will be able to testify to it, the fact that it's a really popular facility in that part of town, so it's good we can manage it properly. I think the key thing with that is that we've given the staff the ability to go away and do it, but at the same time they're going to come back at the end of February and let us know how it went and if we need to change anything. So we'll be able to come back in the new year and update you on that. Secondly, it's more an administration thing, I guess, around the Fendleton Library and the service centre closure. So that's undergoing some repairs and building refurbishments and will close at the beginning of March, and that'll reopen again at the end of July. The big thing with that is that we've got the staff at the moment, and Mary Richardson was talking about it earlier, in terms of working out the ability for those transactional services to carry on. So we hope to get some information on that shortly. One of the disappointing things I guess I have to report is around the Jelly Park sort of scenario, and that it's been a really positive process, I guess, to get it to this point now. But unfortunately, we had, for want of a better word, an idiot jump a fence and kick in some pool liners, which delayed the opening. So we're quite, we're hopeful that it's open this Saturday. The big thing with that is, I guess, it's covered by construction insurance, so it isn't an additional cost. It's just a real nuisance for the local area. And quite disappointing. Bishopdale Skate Jam was a really good event that was on the 1st of December. We were all prepared for Celebrate Bishopdale, and unfortunately the weather on Sunday just didn't suffice. It was literally a swamp, so it was a shame because Leanne was all jacked up to come along to the event, and it just didn't work out. But the Bishopdale Skate Jam went really well, so it's something positive, and we look forward to working out Celebrate Bishopdale next year. It's just unfortunately one of those things we can't get around. And finally from me is around our Group of the Month, and it's always good to point out one of these. We've got the Maryvale Corner Community, or the Maryvale Corner Community Centre is I guess what I want to point out. Mary Ann in our office texted me before and said, just remind everyone that that's actually how they spell Maryvale. So it's not a mistake on our slides. Yeah. It's legitimately the way they do it. But a really good facility and a really good community, ability. And I guess you probably have all seen it on the corner of Papanui Road. It's a stunning building and something really positive. Probably in the report, and you will have all obviously read it and seen it, we've exercised our delegations, or community board decisions under delegation. It's all pretty standard. We've gone through the normal processes, listened to the community, and made pragmatic decisions. So, look, on that note, thank you for all of your support during the year. We've enjoyed working with you, and on behalf of the board and our staff, we wish you all a safe and Merry Christmas, and look forward to next year.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Gosh. So, Aaron, would you like to move the report? Seconded by Rex. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Cheers. Thank you very much. Next one is Waipuna, Hallswell, Hornby, Riccarton Community Board. Mike Mora. And not Peter Dow.
Thank you, Leanne, and councillors, and welcome to my left-hand side. Matt McClintock, who's going to guide me through this morning. Thank you, Matt. You're welcome. Kia ora from the Waipuna, Hallswell, Hornby, Riccarton Community Board. We, at our meeting on the 27th of November, we approved some road safety issues, U-turn restrictions, no right turns, etc., new bus stop locations, and we approved some road names in a new subdivision, Mary Carpenter Ave, Ada Wells Court and Arabella Crescent, and we made quite a lot of allocation, youth development funding for 13 local recipients, so that was all good. Our Part A's, that are coming up in the agenda later on. The Templeton area speed limited changes. Knightstream and Longhurst proposed 40 k's per hour speed limit. That's an ideal opportunity to actually, in the two new subdivisions, to actually introduce a 40k limit in that subdivision rather than having, so when people drive into that area, they know that it's a 40k area right through the whole thing. So in line with that, we're also asking for, our Part A recommendations are for the proposed Kia crossings and school buses only parking restrictions for the night stream school, which will be opening in the new year at that location, and also the Wigram Primary School proposed Kia crossing as well. So that's and parking restrictions. We do have a PX matter coming up later as well. So the significant projects in our area are the Hallsville Heritage Garden. And the Cashmere Garden Group have been active in planting around in the Hallsville Quarry area, and they have working bees where people go, and these groups go and individuals and plant plants, and they've got hose fittings fitted so they can water them, all of that sort of thing. So that's around the Patterson House as well in Hallsville Quarry, so that's really good. And the Oaklands Primary School Eco Warriors, that's something that we're really pleased with. Now these Eco Warriors have won a National Champion Award for the Junior Community Problem Solving category. So that's something that's really that we're really proud of. The names of the young people are there. I won't read them all out, but they've been working very hard to develop their project to make Oakland School rubbish free, and we'll continue with that project into the new year. Community facilities updates. We'll go on. We'll follow your lead here, Matt. The Riccarton Street Party in Elizabeth Street. It's the 10th year that we've held that, and oh, what a wonderful event that is, and it's just teeming with different cultures and people of all ages. It's just absolutely wonderful. Close off quite a bit of Elizabeth Street, and it's just a wonderful event. So long may that continue. And our next slide is, yes, our Uru Manuka Education Trust. That's bridging the digital divide in low decile schools to accelerate school achievement. I did have the pleasure of actually visiting Hornby Primary School just recently, and in conjunction with the with Hornby High School and Intermediate School there, and it's just absolutely wonderful program. So that's something that it's just to bridge that gap and accelerate the student achievement. So that's something that we're really pleased to know is happening in our area. And yes, so I'll carry on back with our agenda. I've got here the Hallsville Hub Hornby project, so that have had their lease extended for another period. That's another, the Hallsville Hub is a really good project for Hallsville. It just keeps that Hallsville community alive and buzzing, and it's just really good. The former Link building, that's by the High Community Centre. That's we're looking for expressions of interest for that building. Harrington Park, with the recent completion of the public toilets and the artwork, murals, etc., that's gone on the walls there, is really wonderful. And the feedback obtained from the playground upgrade engagement is on completion. The draft plan will be presented to the board before proceeding out for consultation. So there's a lot happening in Harrington Park. Hallsville Skate Park is underway, so we're really looking forward to that's being constructed as we speak, and we're looking forward to the Escape Jam to mark the opening on the 18th of January next year. So dust off those skateboards. Now moving on then to the Riccarton Community Centre. Resource and building consents have been granted. Tenders for construction of the new building have closed. so we don't know who they are. But anyway, there's a small sod turning coming up. So that's been something that's been around for a long time, and as soon as the sod's turned, the construction can get underway. The issues around the antisocial behaviour in around the bus lounge is died down. Thanks very much for your intervention there, Leanne, and chatting with the police. But it is something that we were hoping would actually die away, and it clearly has. Any incidents that are going on around there could be stuff that's going on anywhere else in town. So there's nothing special there. And the Aldhurst War Memorial Hall has come back to our board again, and they've got a resurged group looking at, in fact, this week they were meeting on site with engineers and to have a look at what they can do with that building. So they'll be coming back to with a report by the business plan by April. So we're that's a work in progress. So we're really keen that that's still there, but it's taken longer for them to get their business plan together.
But this is potentially for the community to take it back over.
Correct.
Great.
Absolutely. Yes.
Possibly.
Oh, you're planning
Right.
to? Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, that's a different one than I've got. Yeah. Because my helpful home. Yeah, my helpful.
It's different. Well, this goes with what you've just been saying.
Okay, so sorry, there's been a little bit of confusion here. Planning for that War Memorial Hall commenced in 1946, and the land was gifted by the Kyle family, and the Kyle family is still in that area. Kyles were on the old Paparoa County Council back in the day as well. So, and the community fundraised £600 and applied for a pound-to-pound subsidy grant for a memorial hall, and fundraising included the growing of fine crops of potatoes, etc., and it was opened in 1954. And I've seen newspaper clippings of the farmers and their crops out with their tractors tilling the soil to grow the crops, to raise funds to build that hall as the memorial. And as I've said before, it's not the plaques that are hanging on the wall that's the memorial, it is the hall itself. So I'm really pleased that there's still an opportunity to save that hall before the demolition ball hits it.
Yeah, a fine crop of potatoes ain't gonna fundraise.
Sorry?
A fine crop of potatoes ain't gonna fundraise sufficient. You know, so it's going to obviously require a lot of work. I mean, it took 8 years from planning to opening.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, anyway, they came, they asked,
Yep.
and we've
given them
so
the
the
time.
other up and coming events is the Hornby Hoops, which is coming up this Friday, 4 till 9 p.m. at Hornby High School. The Global Christmas, which is this Saturday at Ray Blank Park. Global Christmas is a multicultural global Christmas, so that's what for new migrants and all that, to showcase how Christmas is celebrated in many different cultures in Christchurch. So that's from 5 till 10 p.m. this Saturday at Ray Blank Park. And I'd also like to comment on the fun day in the park that we had last Sunday. It was supposed to be the Sunday before, but of course the weather kicked in, and so the Greater Hornby Residents Association run that event last Sunday, and it was a really good successful event for the first time. And Jimmy, you learnt to throw gumboots, didn't you, Jimmy? And also, Jimmy, I think for the first time saw a sack race. So it was really good to have some of those different things being run there, and it was just a lovely thing. The first time that this has been run. So anyway, hopefully it'll be ongoing, and Santa Claus. Sorry? You'll have to ask.
Well,
ask
you
Jimmy.
know, we've got 10 minutes, so.
Okay. The only other thing I'd just like to say is that Jimmy reported that my wife was sitting on Father Christmas's knee, but anyway, I didn't see that. The Father Christmas sacrificed his reindeer this year and came by hot rod with the courtesy of the rod benders hot rod club. So that was a really good event. So I better am I past my time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Other than that, then I'd just like to wish everybody a very, very happy and memorable Christmas, and go out and spread good cheer to everybody around you. Thank you. And thanks to the staff too for the support of our board through the year. Some of it's been difficult, but anyway, we've got there.
Thank you.
All
right.
the best.
Jimmy would like to move, Anne would like to second. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you too, Mike. Waikura Linwood Central Heathcote Community Board, Sally Buck and Arohanui Grace.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. This is the report from the Waikura Board. I've got some slides up there. Good. We held meetings on the 29th of October and the 14th of November. Let me just go through these. And we approved lots of parking and road restrictions and naming of right-of-ways and landscape plan. Let's go through some more to get to and looking at a bus location. We always have so many of these that I don't even want to outline any of them, just there's always so many from our board, so I just go on to the more interesting parts usually of the things. We've got a couple of Part A reports. We've got the Part A one, yeah, good, sorry. The Botanic Gardens tea kiosk, and we'll deal with that after this. And that includes the proposals, results and the new lease and that. And we've also got the community development approach to street-based sex work quarterly progress report. It's a bit of a mouthful. And this is also a Part A report, but has been forwarded to the Social Community Development and Housing Committee from us. If you go to the next slide, yeah. Significant council projects in the board area, the Linwood Pool. And the project team, this is getting quite exciting for us now. They've undertaken site surveys and commenced geotechnical investigations. And in parallel, the team there are proceeding with site planning to explore requirements for each of the spaces within the facility and identify how these could best be positioned on site. The proposed spatial arrangements have been shared with the community board this week, on Monday, and the community will be asked for feedback this Saturday at a community open day at Linwood Park. So we're getting quite excited about this. It seems like it's finally coming to fruition. Next slide, yeah. Significant community issues, events and projects in our board area, and there's heaps of these. I'll just talk to one of them, which is the Richmond Residents and Business Association, which have become involved in many issues such as roading, urban planning, Richmond Village revitalisation and cleaning up Stanmore Road area, and they're applying for establishment funding. They're involved in the Enliven Places program, City to Coast Heritage Trail, Suburban Centre project. And the Richmond Community Needs Analysis Survey. So there's a whole lot of things happening around that area of our part of town. And we're up to slide 12, which is Cutler Park. So those are all that. Oh yeah, that's one. Cutler Park is a park in the Bromley area of our part of town, and we've identified this. So it's Woolston as a board priority because it's one of the many parks in our area that are in need of attention, but there's no money on the budget for it. The Council Range has been working in collaboration with the Parks Unit contractors to address issues raised by the Community Board and the community itself. The Rangers have have been using the same method as with Cross Reserve to reduce the areas that illegal activities can be conducted, and they've been working on reducing the areas in the nature space that people can use for illegal activities. Progress report against the community plan. Yep. We've got a big workshop planned for the 30th of January to look at a lot of our community board plan activities and how we'll progress these next year and how we'll spend our money. So that's planned for the 30th of January. Yeah, and I just want to raise one other issue as well. In our area report, we've raised the air quality issues in Bromley again. We've continuously had people come to our board area complaining about issues of odour in the Bromley area. And could we request from council a full report, from council and ECAN, a full report as to their action plan on these issues? And we'd also like ECAN and council to update us early in the new year on these odour issues in Bromley, if that's okay. I actually want to talk further, but I just want to check that out with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly acceptable. So I just think if we could just note for the record that the community board are to get a briefing, a joint briefing from council and ECAN in the new year. Early in the new year. So, I don't know whether people are in a position to do so at the first meeting, but certainly within the first or second meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last thing I want to talk about, we had a Christmas gathering for all our community groups on Monday this week, and about 40 of our groups were represented, and some weren't there, but it was really crowded. We also shared with them some of the work we've been involved with over the last year and a bit, and the projects that we've achieved in our area. And so I want to just list these for you, because and say thank you very much to the Mayor and councillors for all your help in these projects. And I'm not talking about the everyday things that we do all the time, like the road and the footpath and all the other stuff that we do every day in our area. And as you realise, it's a huge area. I want to talk about the special things here. So I'm just going to list some of them so you have an idea of all the things that have gone on. And I haven't got them all because I have just made the list now and I haven't thought of them all. So this is just what come to my mind now. The new Sumner Playground, and if you haven't been there and you haven't taken your kids or grandkids there yet, do it. It's wonderful. The temporary skate park in Sumner and the work on the siting of the new permanent skate park. The new Sumner Library. Rising Home, the repairs of the hall in the historic house. The new Woolston Library. If you haven't been there yet, have a go visit there. The new Opawa library plans are in place, and plans have been drawn up as we speak now for that. The dredging of the Heathcote River, a huge job right throughout our area, and dealing with all the flooding issues in our area. The new cycleway through Linwood, the Shagrock Rapa Nui Shagrock cycleway, and also the Heathcote Expressway cycleway. The continuation of the coastal pathway, the steps at Redcliff's Beach, a new car park in Smith Street, a new plan for Scott Park, a new community garden at Radley Park, and another one at Avebury House. The Ferry Road master plans are nearly there, and some of the road master plan. All the events that we've funded and are organised in our area. The crime cameras in the city east and Aberdeen Street in the city. A start on consulting on the Woodhill site in Ferrymead. A liquor ban in the Linwood Village. Funding for all our community groups and some new ones. More seating in Edmonds Park. Helping us fight yet another off licence in our high deprivation areas. And last but not least is a real commitment to the Linwood Pool, which is our biggie here. And we feel, we're really starting to get there with that one. So I'd like to say thank you very, very much to Mayor and Council for all your help with these things. And may we have another good year next year.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that. Are there any questions for Sally? No?
I've probably forgotten many of those things. I missed out, inner city business, Sydenham one. Yeah, I haven't put that one. And all the inner city projects as well. I didn't even mention the inner city ones.
It is a big ward. There's no question about that. It has,
it's just like,
a big community board area. It has 3 wards, and I think
we have a brand new library.
Yeah. It's just, I got to where I was thinking, oh my goodness, I've got no room on the page.
Excellent. So, who would like to move the receipt of the report? Yanni, seconded by? Somebody like to second the receipt of the report? Sarah? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much, and have a Merry Christmas too.
Merry Christmas.
Waipapa Papanui Innes Community Board. Emma Norrish, Community Board Deputy Chair, and Christine Lane, Community Governance.
For giving us the opportunity to present today. We'll just move on to the next slide. Oh, it's a different order. Okay, I'm hoping that you've all read our report, so that obviously outlines everything we've made decisions on this month, so I'm just going to run through a few highlights. First up, we have, I attended the launch of the Liberty Project webinars last month, which is the culmination of a lot of hard work by a number of different people and groups. This all started over a year ago when we invited Associate Professor Kathleen Liberty to speak at our school principals meeting about her research into biological issues in children following the earthquakes and how to deal with the resulting stress. A couple of staff from Neighbourhood Trust also attended that meeting, and the seed was planted for what is now this amazing webinar series called Your Child and Stress. There are 6 90-second webinars voiced by comedian Di Henwood, which show clearly and simply how stress works in children and gives practical suggestions to diffuse or deal with behaviours. This is an amazing collaboration between Neighbourhood Trust and Papanui Youth Development, who did all the technical production, and we were proud to fund it along with the Ministry of Social Development and the Tyndall Foundation. 3 of them have been released already and are available on Facebook or the Neighbourhood Trust website, with another one being released each week. I highly recommend viewing them. Please find them and share them, because these will be very valuable for any parents and whānau out there. I've got young children, and I know I'll be watching and re-watching them. Next up, we have the St Albans Community Centre. We signed off the final floor plan, which had to be reduced slightly as we spent some funds on buying the section next door. So this has gone through the Community Centre Working Party, which was made up of community members and community board members, and so it's now moving on to detailed design, so that's exciting to get to that next phase. We had, obviously, events season has started. We've had a few in our area. This was the St Albans Community Gala Day held at Empower Church on Springfield Road. And then we also had, coming up, Shirley Shine at McFarlane Park, right by the community centre there. We were very lucky to get great weather for all these events. The sun shines in Papanui Innes. So that was another great event that's held annually in November. And then we also had Whakaoho in Papanui. This year this was based at Papanui Youth Development on Harewood Road, but that's a collaboration between them and Northgate and Te Oroho and Papanui Baptist Freedom Trust. So it's great to get along to those events, and the community really love it and appreciate the work that those groups put in.
we do have more, but it's not showing. Okay, so I'll just talk about it and see. We help fund the Santa Claus Workshop Charitable Trust, which works, it's a group of volunteers who work from Shirley Intermediate School to make toys to distribute to children in need at Christmas time. And they have reached their goal this year of making over 1,000 toys, which they brought in some samples to show to our staff, which we did have a picture of. But yesterday they got delivered to Te Puna Oraka, who were very grateful for them, so it's amazing to be involved in that. We also had last weekend another great example of community collaboration in Edgware. We had Community Focus Trust, New Horizons Rotary and St Albans Residents Association, as well as board and staff members went along and did some beautification work in Edgware Village that involved new planter boxes, some barrels, replanting existing garden beds and doing a bit of painting around there as well. And there's more planned in that area, so it'll be good to see that happening. And then on a positive note to finish, our community governance team, we had a lovely photo of them, but it's not showing. They got they won the team integrity category at the Council Star Awards a couple of weeks ago. So we're very lucky to have that team working alongside us. And that's it from us. So thank you very much and Merry Christmas.
Just add to that community day last week, the community planting at Edgware. This is amazing stuff because it was plantings on the supermarket side of Edgware Road and outside the car park outside the shops where Bailey's Bar and that is. The council owned streetscape and the community got in there, they dug it all up, they brought in fresh soil, they bought the trees, they bought the spades, the gloves, the manpower, there was so many people there. They replanted our streetscape. They painted new planter pots that council had provided some new ones, but the old ones they painted up. They've painted our rubbish bins. It's just an outstanding achievement of, I couldn't believe it, the people down there. Everything just flowed, everybody worked.
If you go to our Facebook page, there's lots of pictures on there.
Go to the Facebook page and have a look. But what a great example of partnership. It was really brilliant. And thanks Christine for your help in organising that as well and pulling everyone together. It's just stunning. Yep.
Good to see. Anything else? Who would like to move and second this? Mike, Pauline? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thanks very much. But I'll just deal with item 26, which is the moving of the supplementary report. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Andrew? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Actually, just prior to morning tea, I might just do the Barrington Mall Axway improvements because I know that people are here specifically for that purpose. So if we could deal with item 12, Barrington Mall Access Way improvements. I'm not sure if we have any staff members on this one, but you're happy to move and Tim's happy to second. Are there any questions on this report? Is there any discussion on this report? Phil?
Yeah, Tim made some pertinent points before. This has been a long time in the making, but I think one of the key things has been the way the community have worked with the mall people themselves. Recently, it's been outstanding and goodwill on the part of the mall owners and certainly the community, and they've worked so well with the board. So it's been a terrific partnership, and it takes a while when you don't own property, but in fact, council have worked very well to achieve this.
Thank you. Sarah?
Just a quick question on it.
No, we're in debating.
Oh, sorry. We've got for cycles only. Okay. So if we're doing debate, I'd say in that case, what I'd like to see is that when future reports come up like this, I noticed that in resolutions, they've got that the special vehicle lane is for cycles only, and I'd like us to be considering that scooters and other vehicles, low-powered vehicles, should be allowed in them as well.
that the report at the time fitted the legislation, and certainly like it's a lane as you see, Sarah, not a separate cycleway, but it's important to have that linkage.
Sorry, I asked for questions. There were no questions. I moved into the debate, so I'm sorry. I'm just going to stick to the standing orders on this occasion. Tim?
No, I just think that this has been such a long time coming in our community, and the mall now working together. It's just a wonderful thing to see happen. And a few new things come up like scooters, etc. Let's just get this happening, and it's all good for the community, and it's a positive, a huge positive.
Good. Well, look, the reason that I think that this has been a relatively easy paper to consider for the council is simply because everyone has understood the issue. Everyone has worked in the most incredibly collaborative way. The community have come on board, the owner of the mall has come on board, and it makes good sense. So I really do think that this is a win-win-win, and I'm happy to put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Sarah Templeton, abstention. Great. Okay, so now we'll adjourn for morning tea, and you're all welcome to join us for morning tea if you like, and we'll reconvene at 15 minutes past 11. Right, thank you very much. The next two items, although they're the same paper, they in fact have two different submissions. The first one is the Herwood Road Corridor Study Findings report from Fendleton, Waimari, Herwood. So would someone like to move that the report be received? Sarah? Do I have a seconder for that? Glenn? Any discussion? Aaron?
Yeah, I won't be supporting this. I have a lot of problems with this report because I feel this report's put together to get a particular outcome on a particular intersection, and I'll just quickly skim through some of the bits that I found in there. On page 19 of the report, which is 90 of our agenda, it says there's 7 accidents at the Herwood Breens Gardeners intersection between 2011 and 2015. And then page 21 of the report, police stats from 2012 to 2016 show that that intersection has 10 crashes, so there's a difference there. Page 28 of the report...
Sorry, it's hard to... Oh, sorry. No, you're debating. Carry on.
That's all right. I can go slower. So that was page 19, 7 accidents between 2011 and 2015. Page 21. And would you prefer I use the report numbers or our agenda page?
Agenda page. Okay,
so that's page 90. Then on page 92, the police numbers have 10 crashes at that site. Page 99, the Herwood Greers stats are 2013 to 2017, not 2011 to 2015 or 2012 to 2016. There's a pattern here where we're not using all the same numbers the whole way through. Page 103, the Herwood Gardeners Breens roundabout, it says. It's not a roundabout, it's an intersection. That's just another mistake between the intersections. Page 106, the crash analysis of the Herwood Breens Gardeners. There's no graph for that, yet there is for all the other intersections. That's the comparable graph to the Greers Herwood intersection and the roundabout intersection, the Waldridge intersection. The 2013 to 14, the rate was 6 crashes per year, it says in the report, yet page 19 says 7 crashes from 2011 to 2015. So it says there was 6 per year then, but another page says 7 from 2011 to 2015, and that 6 per year was 13 to 14. And then it ends with, in that paragraph, with 0 crashes reported in 2016 and 2016. And then on page 108, figure 317, which is another graph. It's a different type of graph. These are the ones with the accidents at and around the intersection. The Herwood Breens by worst injury from 06 to 17, so different years again, had 3 serious, 7 minor and 15 non-injury. And the Herwood Breens Gardeners was ranked 62nd the most hazardous intersection using the Kiwi RAP data from 2011 to 2015. So on the same page, they were using different years to create a different picture. And to quote, given the fall in crash numbers, subsequent Kiwi RAP periods are most likely to rank the intersection far lower. So I would expect, if my fellow councillors read this and weren't following the numbers exactly, they would go by that, well, that intersection does not need improvement. Yet in that, since that period of the 2015, and it says there that, and so that report says the Kiwi RAP would most likely rank the intersection far lower. There's been 6 crashes at that intersection in the last year that I've been to myself. I have photos of every single one of them in my phone. 4 of them requiring ambulances. I have photos of the ambulances and or fire brigade at 1 and police at 4, and then on the 7th of November, which is just a few weeks ago, there was 2 crashes in 3 hours, including an ambulance in attendance at the first one. So I don't think we should accept this report because the numbers are all over the place, and how can you make credible decisions going forward when we're going to use so many different numbers? Why get such big long reports and use variations in dates to suit your report or not suit the outcome of the report you want?
Can I?
That's my,
This is the debate, sorry.
so I just table all of those discrepancies that are in that report.
Okay.
And hope no one uses that to make a decision on something we'll go out to consultation with the public for. We'll listen to the public.
Okay. If I choose Sarah, then we wrap up the debate. Sarah?
Thanks. I'm really happy to accept the Community Board's recommendation here today, and note that in the minutes of that Community Board meeting, no one had their vote recorded against, so I'm assuming that everyone was pretty happy with it from the Community Board perspective, and I know that the Community Board have been all over this project for quite some time now. So happy to move it, happy to go ahead with it, and look forward to the next stage in the process.
Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. It's carried. Aaron Kewen called no. And we'll move on to the same report. This has a number of additional recommendations, but it's an endorsement of the study and the recommended strategy, and then noting a number of things about the report. So, Mike, I'll let you move that. Pauline, do you want to second that? Because that's come from the Papanui Innis Community Board. I'll open this one up for debate. Mike?
Thanks. Just quickly, and I will note that this corridor report only goes to Greers Road, so the part that involves our community board area is that intersection. And look, you can read through reports and try and pick out little bits that you've got issues with, but when you read the report in its entirety, it's very clear. Actually, the intersection that is creating the most risk down there is the Greers Road, Herod Road intersection. And I think we just need to be really careful if we're going to try and move projects forwards, especially if the project doesn't even exist, that has large capital expense that probably will not get NZTA subsidies. We just actually got to look what really needs to be done first. And in my opinion, when we look at actually the risk to vulnerable road users, that it's actually the Herod Greers Road. So I welcome this report. I look forward to the consultation with the community, giving them both options, but I think we just need to be mindful of where the risk is down that corridor.
Thank you. Pauline?
Yes, I support what Mike said then, and there could be some of the data that Aaron's pointing out. It could be that they've used different years because there may have been no data for those other years. Who knows? But I'm wondering why that board didn't call for those questions to be answered. Perhaps before this came here it would have been helpful. But I think it's a really good report too. And what I'm most interested in is the fact that we see repeatedly that the intersection improvements could be achieved in conjunction with the planned cycleway works. If they brought that just that one intersection through from that cycleway program, it would have a dramatic effect on helping pedestrians get across that road there. And yet the community board is insisting on pushing that program out further. So I think the logical thing would be to bring that part of that program back forward, and that would address the safety concerns. And we also know that traffic lights don't actually make intersections safer. So they're not a silver bullet at all. So yeah, our board was particularly just added these other notes there, and particularly noted that the cycleway work would actually help this intersection. So I'm going to support this.
Aaron?
Yeah. I just want to address some of the misleading statements there. Traffic lights aren't always about making an intersection necessarily safer. It's about movements across the city, and safety is a factor in that. You want to make every intersection as safe as you can. That's what our staff strive to do as much as possible. They have limited budgets for that. I accept that. It's not just about making that intersection safer to cross. We're a council that's trying to reduce carbon emissions, but we're happy for people to have to drive around the block to get to where they're going because they can't get across an intersection. And case in point was when we did the did the ward bus trip with the mayor on board, and the bus driver gave up after several minutes and had to go left, go down Heald Road and do a U-turn. ECAN raised concerns about when that was a bus route through there. One of their reasons for pulling the bus route was they couldn't get across that intersection. So there's clear examples of how that's a failed intersection. And comparing that intersection to Heald Greers, which has a lot more traffic and already has traffic lights, is a little bit of a false comparison because it already has traffic lights. The problems, and they are listed in the report why the crashes are there, and not because it has traffic lights. It's a number of other reasons. This is about trying to get the people across that particular piece of road, and then the statement that Councillor Templeton made around the board having a chance to raise this. The chair of the board raised this morning in our informal that he had concerns around this because when he wanted it workshop, or would have preferred it been workshop, at the community board, but we'd been given the report at quite short notice to the timing of the presentation of the report. This is a really, really large report. And so I'm just raising that he did raise that this morning. I believe you were there. So to say in this room that the board didn't have concerns is quite misleading.
Right. I'd like to say something about this. So because I was the one that really instigated the concept of looking at the corridor rather than just looking at a single intersection. And the reason that I wanted us to look at the corridor is that for every action there is another reaction, and sometimes, and having spent over 20 years in Parliament, sometimes the consequences are unintended, and it is really important to look at the entire corridor in order to get an understanding about what particular interventions might create. So, and I think that there are significant issues in this report that do need to be workshopped, and I actually accept what Councillor Keown has said, and I think it would be important still, and it's not too late, to have a workshop. And perhaps it's a workshop that could engage both community boards and councillors as well. And so in the new year, I think we should look to do that. And the reason that I'm saying that is that we do need to understand some of the differences. And in the report, the staff report that accompanies the actual report that's been done, the intersection of Hereward Gardeners Breens identifies, the study concludes that there was a spike in crashes coinciding with the route being used as a diversion during transformative works on State Highway 1, which is Johns Road, and since this time the crash route has dropped from 6 crashes in 2014 to 2 crashes in the past 3 years. But then Councillor Keown has raised a more recent set of statistics that probably haven't been factored into this. So again, the workshop would enable that to be looked at. The severity of crashes is low. Again, Councillor Keown's raised the question of the attendance of ambulances, and so that's something that we'd want to look at as well. And where the intersection ranks as 62nd worst in the City Council network and 81st in the total network suggests to me that it won't get an NZTA subsidy. So we need to understand that as well, because there is an additional cost to the council when NZTA do not subsidise. The other thing that this report made very clear is that Hereward Road has changed. It is no longer the major thoroughfare that it used to be, and as a result the 4 lanes encourage people to speed because there isn't a lot of traffic to slow it down. And so it creates a dangerous corridor. And in terms of the turning at Greers Road, I think the point's been made that the worst movements are the Greers Road northbound movement, traffic approaching from the south, having the narrowest approach with the least number of traffic lanes, and the opposing right turn from Greers Road from Northcote Western to Harewood towards Bishopdale. And I want to also raise that dreadful roundabout that sits outside what could be a spectacular jewel in the crown of that particular ward, which is the Bishopdale Mall. And I know that there are people working very hard on making that happen. So I'd like to endorse the study, but I also would like us to get that workshop happening so that everyone understands all of the detail prior to the results of the consultation being completed. So is there anyone else that would like to comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Templeton area proposed speed limit review. That came from the,
this one is a community board unanimous support, but
yes.
Original from the staff report.
So you would like to move it?
I like to move.
Right. Do I have a seconder for it? Yep, Vicky?
Also, I would like to comments.
Yes, but are there any questions first? No? Over to you, Jimmy.
Yeah, because this issue actually, my understanding, the Templeton community and also resident raised this issue at least a couple of years. But I'm a little bit late, but I'm still very happy, staff look into this issue and also engage with Solvent District Council and present to the community board meeting of last time. Then after the discussion, the community board unanimous to support this one. This mainly for the Templeton area, the residents and also community, particularly concern some of the, even it's a rural area, but it's in a kind of center, original is 80 kilometers. Then right now we approve is 60. But connection aligned with the Solvent District Council, that's 100 kilometers. But Solvent they change, to 80. So we just in alignment with the kind of speed limit. So this main reason can also reduce the kind of the risk in injury, etc. Yeah. So I'm happy to move.
Well, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other contribution? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. The next item is Night Stream and Longhurst. Who would like to? Would you like to move that? Anne would like to move it. Seconded by Vicky. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Wigram Primary School proposed Kia crossing. Okay, and seconded by Jimmy. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And Night Stream School. That's in Anne's patch as well. Moved by Anne, seconded by Jimmy. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. That's good. I mean, that's really good. Just sometimes people think it just is getting rubber stamped by the council when there's no debate, but actually there's been a lot of hard work done to make sure that all of those things have aligned, and the community board has agreed with the staff recommendation unanimously on each one of them. So thank you.
And the community and the residents.
And the residents' associations. Unlike a previous one, but I just won't go there. Okay, so the next one is for Botanic Gardens, tea kiosk, request for proposals, results and new lease. Now, yeah, there are two public excluded attachments, so I need to remind you that we need to resolve to go into PX should you wish to discuss any information in the attachments. Is that right? Yep. So these are the PX attachments. Yep.
Does that mean discussing the various applicants?
Hang on,
What?
I'll just...
Isn't
Sorry.
that in the public? I saw it in the paper.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the PX report. Hang on. Okay, it's the actual detail of the request for proposal. So it's not the name, it's just the detail. Yeah. Yeah, the proposal was, but their response to the request for proposal is, you know, commercially sensitive. It's a, well, not commercially sensitive, but, you know, it's confidential to the process. Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. Now, who wants? Is there going to be a presentation, or do you want to go straight to questions?
We can go straight to questions if you like.
Okay.
Look, at the end of the day, this has been quite a long, drawn-out process, and I guess we just wanted to get across that we've got two great proposals here, but obviously we could only choose one at the end of the day, and the preferred respondent was selected essentially on the diversity of the offering that they've got, their alignment with the gardens and horticultural offering as well, so it was a tough decision to work through this process, but I'm sure you can see that.
Okay. So is there, does anyone want to move the resolution? Phil, and seconded by Anne. Okay, so are there questions that people want to raise? Dion, Yanni.
When is the actual move going to take place, do you know?
So we've committed to Ms Gillies that we would give her 2 months from today, but if there's any issue around that, we can work in with both groups and try and negotiate a fair handover process, so 2 to 3 months' time.
Okay, I've got some other questions, but I'll wait.
Yep, Yanni.
I was just trying to understand what's happening with the old visitor information centre. Are you able just to clarify? We have had a memo through from you on that, and it says that there's a long-term project. I think
people were looking to see, is there a win-win where we could cater at least on a transitional basis for the project that's already in there.
Yeah, and in the memo that we've got, it talks about long-range plans for a research centre for the old information centre articulated in the long-term plan. So I'm just wondering if you can tell us what year that budget's sitting in, and yeah, basically, like the Mayor's saying, whether we could, if the budget's long-range, then in the next 2 to 3 years we could have a transitional use where we can get a win-win.
There is money in the budget in the next couple of years for doing that. Basically, the idea is to work with partners and have a customer-facing, visitors-facing science research centre in there. And I'm starting to, have discussions with various partners to see what the opportunities are. Nothing's fully in place yet for that, but the important thing is to have that opportunity, particularly, Landcare, University and others, are willing to come on board to have that flexibility there. But what we could do is look at a transition, say, over the next 12 months, so that, you know, it minimises the risk for us of having somebody in there if we can then go of not being able to use it, but it would give us a year, say up till the end of 2019, to have the exhibition in there of Jenny, if that's what you'd wish to do. So it would still give us that flexibility of using that space finally, you know, eventually for the Science Research Centre.
I'm trying to understand. I've read through the spatial plan and I've read through the LTP. What I can't find is how much money is on budget for the new science centre that's been proposed, and there's a number of different things, but none of them talk about the science centre. So I'm just trying to sort of understand, you know, because obviously we've got budget pressures.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing I can find in the CPMS sheet is we're going to construct 4 Wahara Roa entrance structures, repurpose the old visitor centre and Alpine Garden House, and construct an internal glass wall. And there's about...
So is there a council resolution to establish a science centre there?
I don't think there's a resolution. I'm not sure there's a resolution, but it's certainly part of the spatial plan, and there is money. I think there's 390,000 in there for repurposing the building, but I'd want to check that. That's my recollection.
Having heard what you've said, and you've talked about 12 months, some of us, I mean, I feel that would be too short. So if we went with 2 years as a transitional arrangement, what would be the impact of that?
It would just reduce the amount, you know, it would push away the opportunity of turning that into a research centre. And if we have an opportunity with a partner to say, look, let's test 1 or 2 things for 6 months, that would just be pushed away further.
2 years is a long time when you're talking to universities and other potential research partners to be able to put in displays and public-facing exhibitions with regard to the botanics, and to be able to respond in an agile manner to opportunities that come up with potential partners who Wolfgang is going to be speaking with. We don't want to have to turn them away for want of an exhibition space. So if he's talking to people, having to say to them within the next 12 months, well, you're going to have to wait another 12 months after that for us to have a space available, we can live with 12 months, but 2 years is too long.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to, as a council at a governance level, get a report back on the Botanic Gardens spatial plan and what the budgets are. Because we've obviously got lots of priorities in the Botanic Gardens, but also I would have thought that we've got heaps of exhibition space. We've got a new visitor centre that, you know, some of us supported for having a whole bunch of space to have exhibitions, displays, you know, and I thought part of the Horticultural Society proposal was also to have community opportunities for displays and exhibitions. So I'm sort of struggling to understand what this urgent need would be, given that we've actually seemed to have ample space already.
The space within the event centre is for short-term exhibitions. It's for daily use, and it's also for commercial use.
And conferences and
conferences and things. So it's different to, you know, having something where you're beginning to start a base of, you know, this is outward-facing science that we do in Christchurch, in Canterbury, and having longer-term exhibitions there. It would be hard for us to accommodate that in the event centre.
Sarah?
Can I suggest that, given time delays and the potential moving date and things, that we get a report back to the first council meeting of next year with around the potential for a short to medium term lease of the old information centre.
I think that's going to come out of this anyway, but
so it would be like a number 5 or an
I wouldn't want to defer this decision
No, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
right. So an additional resolution asking for a report to the first meeting of next year on a lease on a short to medium term lease.
Yeah,
whatever that
it's
might
a
look
transitional
like.
lease.
It's a transitional lease.
Yeah.
For that.
So can we work up some wording, but it's essentially along the lines of request staff to report back to the first council of the new year on transitional lease arrangements for the visitor centre. Not the visitor centre, the old visitor centre.
Yeah, information centre. But Leanne,
the old information centre.
That's going to be too long. I think that we need to find something out relatively soon.
What you just want this not to happen till about April then, so that you've got time, if there is an opportunity for the Jenny Gillies to move into that, then she can stay where she is and then move March, April or something like that.
I think there's time pressure on the Horticultural Society in their current accommodation to vacate.
Sorry?
I think there's time pressure on the Horticultural Society in their current office accommodation.
Right.
Is there a reason that if I mean, it seems around the table that we're quite keen to do that kind of use. Is there any reason while we're waiting for the report to come that staff can't be working with the exhibition?
Well, how long would it take to put a report together? Because I mean, maybe we are sort of allowing too much time, and maybe if you could report back, next week, just with the. I mean, I'd reluctantly do that because I know the length of the next agenda.
What sort of options are you looking for? Because I mean, you can make that decision today, but you would be going against normal process, which is to publicly tender a lease. That's what I'm going to be telling you.
No. This is only a transitional lease, so I'm not talking about a permanent lease. It's just a transitional lease, and I don't believe that you do need to go to tender for a transitional arrangement when you're actually trying to cater for the existing tenant who will no longer be the tenant on the passing of this resolution.
We could just accept the 12 months anyway.
Would be quite.
We have to look at what bookings we've got in place for that for that space.
Yeah.
So we can't. We need to go back and see whether we've got anything in place that would need to be cancelled.
So.
Can we also get some information on the types of research that are likely to be done? Because
Can
I
we
wouldn't want
change
to be
the
putting
date?
off research that's climate
Mary?
change related, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
If we can do it faster than the first meeting.
No. But could a report come back next week or the week after? The last week of the.
Yes,
there's only 2 more council meetings.
For the 19th.
The 19th. I mean, that would give you an opportunity to look at all of the existing lease arrangements, but I don't want this to hold up the decision. I think, there's been a long process go on here. It's been through a robust process, and I think we've got to make the decision today. But if we could get request staff to report back to the 19th of December 2018 on the potential for a transitional lease for the old information centre. Right. And are Councillor Clearwater and Galloway happy with that as an addition? Right, thank you. Yeah, Pauline.
I'm still not clear about the date that this would commence if it's approved today, because we had some vagaries that you're looking at 2 months, but it could be more by negotiation.
There's nothing set in stone, basically. We've committed to Mrs. Gillies 2 months from the date of decision.
Because that takes us to probably
as a minimum.
The end of January, beginning of February, which is a bit of a high season in the gardens for disruption, and I'm still keen to push that out a bit. Even to the end of February would help, personally.
Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, we're just trying to work through something.
They have to work with the Horticultural Society, who are under pressure to move as well. So,
we can sit down with both parties and try and work something out. That's the best I can commit.
This seems tragic to take that out.
Well, I don't know that it's tragic. I just think that we're hearing a willingness to sit down and talk and seek to resolve it, but I don't really want us as governance to override what is a common sense solution, which is the staff work with the Horticultural Society and with Jenny Gillies about the transitional arrangements. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yanni?
So I'm still kind of unclear around the decision-making process for the different things happening in the Botanic Gardens.
Can we deal with that when that is an issue for discussion? It's not on this report. Thank you.
Okay, it's just, yeah, we're doing a committee restructure today, so maybe we can raise it as part of that. We repeatedly talked about having a group set up to try and work through these issues around Hagley Park and the Botanic Gardens. And it's just really frustrating that we keep having these issues.
Right. Tim.
Focusing on the issue in front of us. So that number 5 will not hold up anything with regards to the Horticultural Society and the discussions we've had, or you've had so far?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Anne?
Just wondering if we should broaden the number 5 to say, rather than just limit it to the old information centre, to look at transitional arrangements for Jenny, because for me it feels like we need to be supporting her to find other options. One of them could be the old information centre, but it also could be some other things, and maybe, you don't think?
The advantage of doing this is that it's within our sphere of control.
Right, okay.
And it may be that she has other arrangements that she can enter into. It may be with another one of our facilities. It may be in a different capacity altogether. So at least this enables us to look at a very simple move from one place to the other in the meantime.
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. I was thinking about Christchurch NZ being involved in some way, that's all.
Yeah, I think they
Christchurch
are.
NZ have already tried.
They've been tried? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Dion and...
I had some information around the long-term use of the information centre, but I'm still unclear on what's happening there now.
Nothing.
At the moment it's being used by the Friends, but also we use it for exhibitions, you know, supporting Biodiversity Day, for instance, you know, bonsai exhibitions, that sort of thing. I've had a request recently from the New Zealand Botanical Art Society. They'd like to use it. So it's ad hoc uses like that which we get, and it covers, I mean, looking at a 7-month period recently, it covers just short of 3 days a week over that 7-day period.
So the Friends, are the Friends of the Botanic Gardens going to be moving into with the Horticulture Society?
They'll be moving in with them in terms of having a base there, and they are sharing with the Horticultural Society. The intention is for them to share the presence 7 days a week.
Cool.
It still means that for meetings and things, they may have to have other spaces.
We've got
you know, like on Sunday, we've got we've got an event with a talk that I'm giving, which at the moment, we would use the old information centre.
So if you took out the time that they've been using that, how many days do you think it's been used, or how often has it been used? If you take out those main users,
you take out those, I think it's probably between 1 and 2, probably closer to 2 days a week that it's being used, for other purposes. So all of them tend to be either a sort of weekend or a couple of days or 1 day. And that's mostly Biodiversity Week has been a bit longer.
And part of what we're doing with the tea kiosk is going to allow some community uses for, within that building as well.
Within the tea kiosk,
yeah,
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of that may be able to transfer over and whatnot. Do you think?
Yeah. Well, the Hort Society have a huge amount of affiliate groups that they work with that they're going to be bringing into the gardens, not that are already in the gardens. So I think they'll be bringing in a lot more than we would be repurposing from the old information centre.
Good. All right. Any other questions? Right. I'll open it up for debate. Phil.
I just urge councillors to support this. It's been a long process and hard, but and I thank staff for all of the work, and I think the Canterbury Horticultural Society, in terms of the way clearly you have demonstrated that in fact that this decision will work well. I think we know that the Canterbury Horticultural Society has such a long tradition, of such a strong link with our botanic gardens. For me, and I think for all of us, this is a very important heritage building, the little tea kiosk, right at the entranceway to the Botanic Gardens. And I think the strength of having the Horticultural Society there, as the staff have indicated, is a number of affiliated groups who are connected, and the Friends of the Botanic Gardens being just one. And I see Mr Niall Drain here today too, as a former director of the Botanic Gardens. There's huge interest and I think it's the connections that the Canterbury Horticultural Society have, you know, not just with the kiosk, but with the Botanic Gardens, and the way that this building from here on can be used in a very innovative way to really develop the whole, I guess, landscape really of our beautiful Botanic Gardens. So I strongly urge councillors to support these recommendations.
Thank you. Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. I think it's a real shame that it's come down to this. Actually, what was really interesting about the Regenerate Christchurch review of the Central City Blueprint was it talked about the lack of support for creative industries in the Central City, and it talked about the lack of environmental outcomes and monitoring. And if you look at what you know, has been happening in the tea kiosk, what a great example of local creative design. It's, I think, fantastic what has been happening in terms of the Jenny Gillies exhibition in that tea kiosk, and that's exactly, I think, what we should be promoting and celebrating in our city, is that creative design, and particularly with the Garden City as one of our key images. So it's a real shame that this has come down to this unfortunate situation. I think as a councillor who argued strongly for the new visitor information centre to be built, I'm still struggling to understand how that's basically been turned into a commercial function centre, and all the uses that I was hoping that would be happening in that one actually have now been put into the old buildings that were actually supposed to be replaced and have activity happening in the new. So it is really frustrating that we're at this point. It's frustrating that we've got a new building that doesn't seem to be able to be accessible for the community use. But equally, you know, it is good that we've got groups that are invested in supporting our city, supporting the Botanic Gardens, and that's why I'm really keen to find, you know, a solution for both, rather than just have one. There was I didn't get to it, but I think there was a harvest festival last year or earlier this year. I think earlier this year, which was great. It showed all these groups working together, and certainly, you know, I just think that's what we should embrace. So I think 5 is really critical for me. I really want that to come back. I think it's really, really important. I didn't support this at the community board in terms of the initial resolutions, but you know, I will respect that that's a decision that's been made, and I suspect it will go through council today. So I think 5 is really a critical thing for me. I really want to get that information back. This is a really awful time of year to be doing these decisions, and so if it can come back sooner, that would be even better. But you know, I'll support 5 as hopefully a way forward. But we should be embracing the creative industries in our city. It's been a huge gap post-earthquake. Things that add colour and vibrancy and activation to our central city should be cherished, and I think we have a duty to support them.
Thank you. Sarah and Aaron?
Yeah, I'm really glad that we've been able to add the number 5 today, and like Yanni, the desire to keep the creative industries flourishing in the city is really strong, but as well as that, the future-proofing with our food and climate resilience when it comes to horticulture is also really, really important. And another thing that's been really clear is that for many of our council-owned buildings that have had extensive repairs, such as Mona Vale, Saint Takahe, we've had community groups saying, hey, listen, we want access to these buildings. We want to be able to see the money that's been spent, and we want to be able to look at the heritage fabric of these buildings. And so hopefully being able to transition the Enchanted Garden exhibition into the old visitor centre and allow public access into the restored tea kiosk and repaired tea kiosk will be really excellent, and to give people free access into that so they can see the heritage, the fabric of that building, look through the windows out into the garden, because it's such a special building, will be really good.
Aaron and then Dion.
Yeah, I mostly support everything that's been said already. I think the Jenny Gillies display is quite unique to our city, and it's something that should be celebrated. Not necessarily it should be locked to the Botanical Gardens area. It would make a great pop-up in a number of parts of the inner city where we're trying to activate, where tourists can interact with it. It's just how we do that and how we find that space. There's a lot of empty retail space that it could be potentially used. It's just how do you make that marriage happen to get the best outcome for everyone, because we're trying to draw people to the inner city, not just the gardens. They are actually pretty successful as far as numbers goes, but getting more people into the inner city would be good, and maybe that's one of the attractions that can do it. Any exhibition will come and go. Exhibitions date by nature. That's what they are. They're a snapshot in time. Whereas the Horticultural Society has been here, it's one of the oldest organisations in the city. It's made an incredible contribution to the city's history, and they've changed in recent years with their schools programs. They're getting into edibles, they're getting into teaching a lot of younger people. Having the schools gardens competition, I think, is showing how much they are changing in the 21st century and adapting to the changing environment that our city is, because not all gardeners are old. Some of them are quite young. I've got a 3-year-old gardener in my place with pet worms and his own strawberries and all sorts of things, so they start young and they enjoy it.
Good. Down.
Yeah, I really enjoy the creativeness of what Jenny Gillies exhibition does provide to the city, and it's actually really unique, and that's the one thing, that's why I've really been fighting quite hard to try and, you know, find solutions to creating it, to keeping it here, because I mean the city is in a really interesting space, and these kind of things do bring some life to the city, and I don't want to lose those things. It's not the message that I want to send out to Christchurch, that we're not going to, you know, do everything we can to keep people who not necessarily want to make money for themselves, but actually just want to share the love around the city. And that's what I think that exhibition does. I think if we weren't having, I mean, if there wasn't a long-term plan for a science centre in the old information centre, I don't think we'd probably be having this conversation, because it would be potentially another place where, you know, the Horticulture Society could go and could make it work, who knows. But we've got that building there for the time being. I really want to see a solution come back on the 19th of December. I really would like that, and I think that would send a good message that this council can actually make things happen and work with people. I didn't support this at the community board, but I will support it today, because I do appreciate the work that the Horticulture Society do. I think they do some really good work, and you know, it is a good fit for the gardens as well. But I want to see that work come back, and I really want to see a solution that actually makes it work, because that would send a good message, even if it's, you know, a temporary one, and then we can work with you know, Jenny to actually find long-term solutions, because there are long-term solutions in this can-do city. We're the city of opportunity, where anything is possible, and we will make this possible.
It's a good note to end on. Oh, Anne.
Just to reiterate everything that Dion said, it would be really sad if Jenny took from this decision today that we don't value immensely the work that she has done and the contribution that she's made to our city. And, you know, I'm hopeful too that staff will be able to come back with some really good solutions that are a win-win here, because there's a lovely synergy between what Jenny does and we as a garden city. And we do really value her creativity and the effort that she has put into this over many years. So I'm hoping that from this today she feels valued and honoured, and that we are working hard to find a good solution for her as well.
Very good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, staff, for all of the hard work that you've done. The next item on the agenda is the draft submission on the National Disaster Resilience Strategy. And I kind of have to do a slight mea culpa here, because it took me until last night to read the strategy, to read what it is replacing, and to read the council submission. and I was a little bit taken aback at what it is replacing, and a little bit surprised that it didn't mention either Christchurch or Wellington as members of the 100 Resilient Cities Network, who have been working on resilience for a number of years, and has created a definition of resilience which is not bad, but slightly disconnected to the issues that we've been grappling with and included within our resilience plan. So what I would quite like, I mean, the submission itself is fine, but I think that it needs additional, it needs more of a sort of overarching statement, and I know that it has to be submitted by tomorrow. And so I've asked that we add this recommendation to request staff to seek approval from the ministry that an addendum to the submission be submitted. It says at a later date, but I'd really like us to do it next, have it completed by next week. And I'll do it. I mean, I'm not asking staff to write it. I have written speeches on this. I have written articles on this. I kind of know it back to front, and I'm really happy to do it myself. So I'm not going to ask staff to do anything else. But I did want to comment on a couple of things, and I mean, I don't want to take up the time of the council, but has anyone else got issues around the submission? Oh, okay, right. Well, we'll go to the questions first before I sort of head into this area. Glenn and then Phil.
Thank you, Leanne. I'll try to keep this high level, and I realise it's a submission, of which part of that is readiness, and it refers to a document in which it talks about readiness and response, Rob, as part of the resilience. So I guess for a lot of the community looking at these things, they may be aware this is on our agenda. I'm thinking that a measure for them will be what happens next time there's a potential, tsunami threat as we had, but there was a disconnect between Wellington and here. So how much confidence could I have that a strategy like this will actually address those disconnects?
Good question. I think this is what the Ministry are aiming with this strategy is a much more wider encompassing than the previous strategy. So we're talking about resilience as a whole, and I think the Mayor just mentioned around that. Yep, sure, the 3 priorities in this new strategy, one of those does heavily cover response, and that's going to be also addressed with the emergency management reform, which is off the back of the TAG review. So response-wise, I think there's more confidence now than there probably ever has been about interlinking, particularly around the AF8 scenario and the need to work nationally and definitely regionally. So I think the confidence is there. I think this particular strategy is much more encompassing than just a response component.
Right. And I may just ask, the first bullet point under key submission points in 3.5 talks about, into action by cascading items of critical importance, etc., etc. Is that what we're talking about, or is that another matter?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a strategy, and I think we need to make sure that there's a really explicit implementation plan, and that's about making sure that comes from a national level into group through plans so that we can actually implement and follow it. So we need a real detailed implementation plan to make this strategy effective. Yep. Yep.
Phil?
Thanks very much for the work on this, Rob, and it's very important in terms of climate change and all the other potential disaster things. So I just wondered about the timing for which we're asking for, in terms of, and some differences in the, I guess, the objectives that are here. For example, the one on point 7, when I find it, I think is that would be by 2025, that measures to ensure safety and well-being of people, and then we go further down, I think, to number point 13, it's building a culture of resilience, including a future-ready ethos. That stepped out to 2030, and that just seemed to me to be a long time. And can we not? Should we not be asking the government to pull that back further so it happens earlier?
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and I think that the figure's quite arbitrary in that it's linked to the Sendai framework, and I think that expires in 2030, so that runs from 2015 to 2030, and I think that's been linked to that, and the Ministry have reflected that in the comments. There is also a group level submission, which Christchurch takes part in that, and those details of the report about, I think they're in the, you know, what does success look like, and I think that a lot of the comments was around trying to take out those operational components from this strategy, the dates for those as well. I think there's also mention of the controllers to be trained by 2025. So some of those dates need to be really drawn down in the implementation plan. But at the moment, they're just, I think they're linked to the Sendai framework, which expires in 2030.
Which is one of my overarching comments. There's absolutely no reason why we should accept the length of the targets of the Sendai framework when we are perfectly capable of meeting every single one of those objectives in a much more defined timeline. I wouldn't wait till 2025 either, so which is one of the areas that I'm going to ask that you change in here, and that we, in fact, we just say that we disagree with all of the timelines that they are to cover the world. The Sendai framework is for every single country in the world, not just, I mean, a country like New Zealand, through the experience that we've had, we can be much more aspirational than that. And I would suggest 2021 with a report back to our international conference that we'll be having on said subject in that particular year.
You know, just had one other point too, and that was just to ask Rob. Like, clearly, it's establishment of a structure at a national level. But I just wondered, in your view, is there enough emphasis on the grassroots role, or taking the people with you at a local level? Is there enough emphasis in this on that? I just didn't always see it. That's all.
And I think that's the intent of this strategy, is that it can be read by the individual, and that they are also part of this, and that we're making resilience a countrywide issue rather than just a civil defence issue. So I think that we do cover that in the strategy, and certainly in some of the feedback we've provided. Yeah, yeah. It is about the people, and I think they're quite explicit about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Pauline.
Well, look, I'm just following on for the timeline to 2030, and I was looking at number 18, talking about understanding our infrastructure vulnerabilities, and I was going to support you. I think we in Christchurch should have a much better idea of how our infrastructure sits at the moment. Our drinking water infrastructure is probably more challenging, but we should be able to easily bring that deadline way forward, I would say. So I was just merely going to comment on supporting that.
Yeah. Vicky?
I'm just intrigued by the length of time this seems to take, given the latest IPCC report, and we're at 1.5 degrees of warming by 2030. This seems to be taking a look at a very long time horizon, when we know that far more frequent and severe disasters will happen, even just because of climate change, within the next 3 to 10 years.
But is that another reason to bring all the timeframes forward to 2021?
Absolutely. I would have thought that would have been imperative. The second question relates to the coordinated view of this and local authorities adopting objectives aimed at building resilience in their city or district, but then having the potential in the government report for quite separate authorities that may go over an entire island for the three waters, which will be one of the biggest areas of disaster that we face. So you don't seem to have commented on the government's desire to take out the three waters from local government.
Yep, true. There's no specific comments around that.
But wouldn't you, if you were actually trying to coordinate responses within cities or districts, wouldn't you want to have control of the three waters, given the importance of the three waters in any major resilience framework?
And I think that would probably fall under the disaster risk component, which we're trying to get owned at a national level, but also at a regional level, so we can drill down into all of our risks and not just the water component of that. And I think that there's questions around governance and implementation as well, and I hope that they would picked up in those.
So, but shouldn't we raise the issue that actually it makes no sense if you're looking at city or district-wide responses to ongoing and increasing issues, that the Three Waters are then somehow flicked off into a separate authority that doesn't relate in any way, shape or form to the city or district?
Yeah, I think that's the infrastructure component of resilience, so I agree. So are there any other ones? Because I've got several points that I actually think there are a couple of amendments we need to make today, and what I might do is just get, rather than approve the draft submission, just approve final sign-off on the draft submission. I don't know whether you want it for a couple of people or whether I'm happy. If you're happy with me signing it off, give the mayor total control. Right, Yanni.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for you. I know how much work you've done in this space. I think the well-being of people, and it's sort of touched on page 273, where they talk about people and groups with particular needs or are likely to be disproportionately affected by disasters, are engaged in planning and preparedness. And I just think, you know, the example of Christchurch just has huge lessons to be put forward in that regard. If you think of the inner city east, almost the lowest priority, not included in the blueprint really in any great detail. So I think, you know, I think it's really important that you do make reference to some of the things that lessons from here.
Yep.
And also the fact that actually people that I think the heritage, like it's really good to talk about cultural heritage, but actually the built heritage. And so I think the point that you've made previously, which I would hope that you would make in your submission, is the greenest building is a building that's left standing. And actually one of the huge devastations in Christchurch in terms of lack of resilience was the sheer number of things that got knocked over rather than retained for affordable spaces and places. So I know you're aware of that, but from a environmentally sustainable point of view, and from an affordability point of view, I think it's absolutely critical. So I hope you'll reflect that.
Right. So I think, okay, so there's a couple of things, and I didn't really understand this until I went back into the source documents. So this document, what's called the National Disaster Resilience Strategy, is actually the Civil Defence Emergency Management Strategy under the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act 2002, which are required to be done for up to 10 years. So I'm going to suggest that this one be for 5 years. In fact, I actually think it should be for 3 years, and it should be reviewed in 2021. And the reason for doing that is that when you actually look at what it's replacing, and I know it's been a number of years since this was replaced, and it seems to have got out of alignment. But the previous statement under the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Act, the whole ethos of it is resilient New Zealand, communities understanding and managing their hazards. And all of a sudden this has turned into a top-down exercise. So it's stopped that whole, and it references bottom up, which I'd hate as a phrase. I prefer grassroots up rather than suggesting that it's that local and community-based approaches. It talks about successful disaster risk reduction tends to result from a combination of top-down institutional changes, strategies and policies, and bottom-up local and community-based approaches. That is true. It's a combination of the two that does that, but it's an equal contribution. You know, so that bottom-up, top-down tends to suggest that there's a hierarchy. So I'd really like to see that changed and sort of highlighted. The other thing is that it states on page 12 the three of this, and this is of the actual reports. You've got to go into the document. the three components can be countered by a fourth component. So the three components are hazard, exposure and vulnerability. They make up disaster risk. But they can be countered by a fourth component, which is capacity. And that refers to the strengths, attributes and resources available to reduce or manage the risks associated with the combination of the other three factors. It's looking for strengths that exist in your local communities, the attributes, the resources that are available to your local communities. And then it goes on to say the main opportunity for reducing risk, and they completely ignore what they've just said, lies in reducing exposure and vulnerability, and completely ignores increasing capacity. Completely ignores it. So, I mean, and I really wished I'd read all this stuff in the weekend, but I didn't. And I'm now very keen for us to maybe fix that. All of the dates need to be changed. And it says at one point, our own submission says that this has got to be owned by the group. But actually, if it's owned by the group, it's not owned by the people. So I really want us to take quite a strong lead on this being a community-led and understood approach to building resilience. And it actually will do a lot more for our country than disaster risk reduction. But so if we can make some relatively quick amendments to you know, they're relatively simple amendments to make, and then I'll do the addendum for the following week. Yeah, Yanni, you're not Yanni.
Again, I'm going to start fining you for this.
Yeah.
I'll be a rich man by Christmas. Yeah, we look the same, do we? The question, is this just looking at disasters? In terms of natural disasters?
It specifically says that.
It's natural disasters?
Yes.
Okay, so it's specifically just for natural disasters?
Right at the very beginning of the... So most people haven't gone back and looked at the discussion document, so I think that what needs to happen in future is that...
Well, it just says the National Disaster Resilience
it would be useful
strategy.
to put the strategy and the draft submission online, even though you're not putting it on the agenda. So if it's in the hub, then councillors will read the... I know that you can just touch on it and you go straight to it if you touch... There's a link in it, so you can just touch the link. But what it says is that while acknowledging broad societal resilience is desirable for achieving higher living standards and optimal prosperity and well-being, this strategy is confined to the disaster aspects of resilience.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I was just... Because those two are actually interlinked, especially when you're
I
talking...
agree. I don't agree with the statement, but it's what they're focused on.
I mean, and I think we should actually say that in our, somehow, that, you know...
We'll do it in the supplementary. There's nothing...
If people are going to be prepared for a disaster, they need to be resourced. If they don't have the money to have resources,
but there's nothing in the staff submission that actually suggests for 1 minute that would be counter to that, so we'll put that in the supplementary.
Okay, good.
Phil?
I am pleased that there's reference, for example, to community boards, but I agree entirely with you, Leanne, that in fact this has to, and it was, certainly was absolutely clear at the symposium of the earthquakes last week, that, you know, it's essential for disaster planning that we take and involve people with us, and I think of the amendments that we make, and probably you signing them off, Leanne, that whole theme is going to be essential.
Yeah, I think there's just been a general sort of kind of I don't know. It seems to have been created in the absence of any connection to the symposium, to the lessons learned website that has been developed, and also the 100 Resilient Cities Network, which Christchurch and Wellington are members of. Which is a shame, and of course the climate change imperatives as well, but that will be made clear.
Just a question to you on that. Just for example, the new president of Brazil is planning to log the rainforest, which is the lungs of the earth.
Don't ask me to stop him.
No. I'm just wondering if the 100 Resilient Cities are planning any action on that.
I don't know.
He's quite mad. Sorry, you're probably not.
Yeah, but you could raise that with our Chief Resilience Officer, because there may be a Chief Resilience Officer in Brazil. I don't know.
I suspect not now.
Yeah, but there may be somebody that you could connect with in that regard. So
it's just that the impact is on the entire world.
Dire. Dire. Yeah. Not the only place in the world, unfortunately. All right, so given that you're approving, so is this going to be signed off jointly by you and me? Eh?
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, okay. So signed off by Mayor and Councillor Buck, and requesting staff to seek approval that an addendum. So and so that means if we can turn something around overnight, I'll have to do it by email, I'm afraid, because I've got National Council tomorrow. All right?
Yep.
Would someone like to move the resolution? Phil? Seconded by Mike. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for all the work that you've put into this. Right, and I apologise once more for not having looked at it earlier. Right, the next item is refining the committee structure. And since which time there have been some suggested amendments. Have we got the amended? It doesn't show. Okay. Can you email it to everyone as well? It'll be easier if you can email it. So we'll get this emailed so everyone's got the actual wording in front of them. There haven't been lots of changes, but we'll need to scroll. But look, if I just start off by explaining the origin of this report, and I'll just sorry, I was just looking for the, oops, sorry, I had a very simple explanation. Right. Oh, I've got no.
I did take notes, but I don't know if you can to read them.
Look, sorry, I did actually write down a note about this, and it might have gone into the media. See that the issues that they've raised have been covered. Sorry. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Gosh, where's yesterday's?
Does she want me to give the background?
Right.
Do you want Mary to give the background?
No.
Okay.
Right. So, where is it? Oh yes, so, right, people will recall when we did the long-term plan that, sorry, the annual plan, no, the long-term plan, which we concluded in June, there was the issue that had been raised by the external advisory group about the oversight of the capital program. And at the time, you noted my commitment to establishing a committee that would be focused on the $500 million capital program, ensuring it got the same high level of oversight as other aspects of council performance, in line with the recommendation of the external advisory group. So by adding a new terms of reference to the Finance and Performance Committee, making it a committee of the whole council and giving it power to act, it will replace one of the monthly council meetings and ensure in-depth oversight of the core critical projects while providing discipline around the rest of the programs. The benefit is pretty obvious, which is that all councillors will benefit from being involved not only in terms of the capital program but in terms of the terms of reference of finance and performance, which take over the balance of functions of the Strategic Capability Committee, which means that the whole of the council is focused on the strategic capability of the council and are involved in all of the decisions around finance and performance and now oversight of the capital program. And so at the same time as doing this, we've taken the opportunity to make some other adjustments, discharging the Strategic Capability Committee, establishing a Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee, because that's really the remaining function, and we did previously have one of those, so we'll have that again, and then making some delegations, which is partly also my desire to see decision making aligned with where it needs to be made, rather than coming back to council as a recommendation for a re-litigation after all of the people that have got the in-depth knowledge of the issue have made a recommendation. So so that's essentially what it is. It establishes, which I know Councillor Kewen's been working on for a long time, a working group on disability issues, reporting to Social Community Development and Housing Committee, but noting that ITI will be consulted on the terms of reference of the working group. Can you scroll up just a little bit further? And then there's a couple of changes that people wanted to make to committees that they were on, and we have and one thing that I've picked up, and the reason that I really want this through today is so that we can get the council the calendar of scheduled council meetings out, so that people can see what they have to cater for next year, but also enables others to look at meeting schedules as well. We do try and assist Councillor Kewen, for example, in terms of the DHB, and I think we've managed to retain that. I am inviting the community boards, though, to review their meeting schedules in light of the scheduled recess weeks, because I think it's really important that community boards think about not having community boards in the recess weeks, because it's not fair actually on the councillors that in that regard who are unable to make alternative arrangements due to the commitments there. And I think it's popped up in the week which is Easter Monday, which is a statutory holiday, 3 days, Anzac Day, which is a statutory holiday, and then another meeting. We don't control OCHT, but they might want to look at their date, and so might Christchurch NZ. So, just saying. I'm happy to move it, and is anyone happy to second it?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Andrew. You've worried me there for a minute. But now I'll open it up for questions, some of which will be answered by staff and some of which will be answered by me. Andrew, Jimmy, Mike, Pauline, Glenn, Yanni, Dion. Right.
Okay, two questions. Two questions, one of which relates to matters that I raised earlier, which have led to some of these amendments. So just a question for staff, and it's really just checking. There is nothing that was previously in the terms of reference for the Strategic Capability Committee which hasn't now landed in the terms of reference for either Finance and Performance or the Chief Executive and Employment Relations Committee.
No,
There's nothing that's fallen through the cracks.
No, that's correct. And so all the employment and chief executive performance related matters are in that committee, and the amended ones that we just checked there, so the amended terms of reference for finance and performance now reflect everything that was in strategic capability.
Thank you. And then my second question relates to the new Finance and Performance Committee, Committee of the Whole, with Councillor Manji as the chair, no deputy chair noted, just because it's got all councillors noted there as membership. I'm just confirming that I'm happy to continue in that role.
And actually, that was our mistake. We understood we were looking at the wrong clause in the legislation. So yes, you can actually appoint the deputy today for that. So sorry, that was just an oversight. We looked at the wrong clause and thought the committee had to appoint the deputy based on, I think it's section 26, but if you look at section 25, the council can appoint it, so that could be an amendment where you could reconfirm the deputy chair today.
Rather than the mover and seconder, you can just add it in there.
Yep.
Sorry? Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I wasn't aware that there was an intention to change the chair.
No, there isn't.
No.
Wasn't any
Just stays the
intention.
same.
Yeah.
No, there was no intention to change either the chair or the deputy chair. So, but there is a question that I have around that, because of course it becomes a committee of the whole and replaces one of the council meetings. And the question is could the meeting still be live streamed even though it's not a council meeting? I mean, we obviously still have the budget for it because it is a because it would normally be a council meeting. I actually think it would be worth it because it is a change, and what I wouldn't want is for all of the finance and performance and capital review discussions to be not live streamed, because I think it would add value to people's understanding of our finances.
Yes, yeah. and considering the amount of delegations that committee's going to have, I think it would be appropriate that it was live streamed.
Yes. Okay, so can we just resolve to live stream the meeting? So if we could pop that into one of the motions, it doesn't add anything to our budget because we already have budgeted it, and I just wanted to. It suddenly occurred to me that it's a committee and it may not be automatic. So if we could resolve that, yeah, just adopt the revised terms of reference for the and then just say agree that the Finance and Performance Committee meeting as a committee of the whole of the council will be live streamed.
Actually, while you're typing, can you check that 4 says that the delegates' responsibilities, terms of reference as amended rather than in attachment A?
Right. Okay, Jimmy.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember last time the council meeting particular request the International Relations Working Group to transfer from the social and the community committee to the strategic and the cabinet committee, and also this working group has been revised those terms of reference already. I suggest that whether it's under the paragraph 5, discharge the strategic cabinet committee, then international relations working group because along this new structure and report to the council directly. Whether just specify the one sentence.
So
because based on this structure is.
Can Mary answer the question?
So at the moment, if you look at the paper in 7.2, the diagram clearly identifies International Relations Working Party still there, reporting straight into council. So there's no change. So no resolutions needed.
Before it's report to the strategic committee, but you discharge it,
Yep.
then just specify clearly. Put out clear.
No, it's
Otherwise,
that one.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it is a change. So
Okay, so
it's a
my
change.
you need to revise, you know, all the kind of
Otherwise, it would
reference.
be finance and performance. So
I wasn't aware that it reported in there, so we
yeah.
will make a resolution.
Well, we
so-
changed it because it was inappropriately going through social and community and housing. So, yeah.
So
So
resolve.
it's a good point. If we could just agree that the international relations working group will report directly to council.
Sorry.
Yep. Good.
My apologies
Good.
about that.
Good spotting. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. At a recent community board meeting, a notice of motion to advocate to central government on national accessibility legislation was what failed, which was a little bit concerning. But I hope that with this task force, this disability issues task force, that they actually take that up and have a look into that in more detail and potentially advocate as well to, or recommend to advocate to central government.
Can we just look at their terms of reference?
So their terms of reference aren't submitted because they'll be developed and reported through social.
Okay, can we go to the disability? It's now a working group, so go back. No, stop. Go back up. Yep. Keep going. Right there. So it's number 13. Request establish a disability working group to be noting that there will be consult on terms of reference. Well, you don't need to have of the working group, so take out that and just on the terms of reference. No, sorry, you don't need to add anything, just, yep, on the terms of reference. And then in brackets, which should include yeah, it's kind of like it's not advocacy, but it's kind of like consideration of the legislative framework for disability issues that impact on local government decisions. You know, so we're asking that the working group actually look at the legislative framework. Yeah, I mean, we've got a New Zealand disability strategy. We have a lot of legislation that covers disability, but I know that Aaron's been very keen to push the envelope as far as some of the minimum standards go, which are not international best practice.
So that was meant to be impact on local government, not impact on disability strategy. I think that's what the Mayor suggested. Yeah. Consider the legislative framework that impacts on local government.
No. The legislative framework that impacts on disability issues in relation to the what should include in relation to local government matters. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to pick up on what Mike said. I get that, but I actually don't know where the legislative framework's up to, and I know it's quite disparate across different pieces of legislation, so that's something that the working group could consider.
And that's why you would only support something that you understood, because as a council, would we support a national standard that we didn't agree with?
No. So, no, I understand why the resolution didn't pass, because I failed to understand its intent myself. So, but I think the underlying issue, I think people are very supportive of. So, yeah. Now I've got Pauline.
Yeah, just with the terms of reference for ITI, and with consideration of one of our top strategic priorities is climate change leadership, that we probably should include that in our terms of reference, that climate change...
So what we've done is to ask that when you're encouraging opportunities for citizenship, community participation and working in partnership with key agency, you consider the impact of climate change and its decisions relating to infrastructure.
And you would say end the environment, wouldn't you?
But it actually,
yes, it does. And so the thing is that the climate change leadership sits with Innovation and Sustainability Committee, and they will come up with things. But we're asking you, when you consider water supply, stormwater, natural hazards, blah, 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 you have to consider the impact of climate change in your decisions relating to infrastructure.
So it'd be infrastructure and environment for that committee too, Leanne? Impact on infrastructure and environment.
So it's relating to...
well, why don't we just take out relating to infrastructure? Just consider the impact in its decisions.
Exactly, and it probably should be in all of the terms of reference, actually, because over the top.
Yeah. Hang on, I've got a speaking order. Yanni, Dion, Sarah.
Sorry, just so I'm clear. So where committees aren't referenced in here, they're just staying the same, basically. So just given that one of the rationales for this was addressing the high volume of reading committee and council time commitments for mayor and councillors.
No, it was doubling up.
Sorry, this is on page 278 and 279. Just wanted to check how you'd mapped the workload, obviously for those councillors who weren't involved in this process. It would be really good just to have some understanding of how you've mapped the workload across.
So that was reported at a briefing session to all councillors about the number of reports that were going through each committee and through the committee boards, and also the number of reports that were actually coming up to council having already been considered by finance.
So I guess it's more a question of the mayor. In terms of individual councillor workloads, there seems to be quite a disparity between the number of appointments.
How do you mean?
Well, if you go through the number of councillors on X amount of committees, external boards, etc., there doesn't seem to be any focus on that or reflection on that.
Well, I mean, I've asked people whether they're comfortable with the workload, you know, and I've said that to people who want to move from one committee or add another committee. I've said, can you do the work? And I've had that assurance.
So sorry, and our work was more looking at the workflow and the number of reports that were actually reconsidered twice, and that's why we were particularly recommending delegations to finance and performance, because the amount of reports that go through there, and 80% have to get reconsidered by council.
I was more interested in the fact that one of the reasons it's hard to get meeting times for hearings is because there's some calendars that is completely full, and there's others that aren't completely full. So how you address that is quite fundamental.
This will help.
Yeah, I don't see where that analysis has happened. Just the living wage, what committee does that come under?
So that will be under the employment.
Chief Executive and Employment. Chief Executive Performance and Employment.
Right, and that's not a delegated responsibility, that's something that will come back to us. Can we be just explicit about that? Because I thought that they could do a remuneration policy across council and our companies. That was my understanding of the Local Government Act changes.
But that is part of a remuneration policy.
Right, so just my reading from the CEO employment one.
So those terms of reference have no delegations. They've got matters that they consider, but they haven't got any delegations.
Yeah, we never had a delegation on that.
So, I think it would be good just to clarify that, because I don't know how much we can say, but previously there was an information gap between the full council and that committee, so I just want to get that addressed if possible.
So if we change the very first sentence on that, and the Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee considers and reports to council on the following matters.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then are we able just to include living wage somewhere in there?
So remuneration and employment policy, including the living wage, down that bottom.
I think that would be good.
Oh, I hate that phrase.
And then just the other question I had was around cycleways. So it seems kind of odd that quite a huge expenditure, and I think we were told this morning that's not going to finance and performance, and yet that's a hugely significant amount of money. So what's the rationale behind that?
Finance and performance already get all the money stuff for that, and IT has the delegations for the decision making over the route selection and the design and that.
I understand that. So I just wanted to be clear then that the capital monitoring of that expenditure will still go to finance and performance as it's currently been doing.
Yes,
yes.
It's only the decision
no,
making
that's not changing
around it.
Yeah,
and that's the Strategic Capability Committee identified that will be reviewed over the next 6 months, but at the moment keeping the existing delegations where they land.
Yeah.
Right, and in terms of the other thing that seems to be a gap is, like if you take the capital program, did the Strategic Capability Committee actually consider actually delegating the local projects to the local community boards? Because that's been a huge source of frustration, and it seems like that's another area where we could actually do huge improvement around things under a certain value, just being able to get sorted at that local level.
So which one?
That's another stream of work that will be reported back up to you early in the new year. So the delegations, the relationship with community boards and the delegations to community boards is coming back early in the new year.
But we still do that on a case-by-case basis. We delegate lots of things to community boards.
Yep.
Now.
It's quite ad hoc. So,
yep.
I just wondered whether, a financial figure, threshold, value of a project.
Not off the back of this report, no.
Right.
But we will be looking at that in the new year. Yep.
Okay. And then can I just ask that the development forum begins at 9:30 rather than 9, if possible?
The Central City Development Forum.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. It's usually in the afternoon.
Yeah, it is. And there's some are, but
yeah.
My view on this is that this is just a framework, and if there's minor sort of tinkerings, like literally half-hour mover of a meeting, we can do any time we want.
Well, and I think we're all aware of Yanni's requirements in that regard.
Yeah.
And I mean, it may well be that we want to again knock that back to a smaller group of people. I'm in two minds as to whether the committee of the whole works for the development forum. So.
Right.
We'll just work through that issue.
And just a final question is, like, the Disability Issues Task Force, is that got
working
a
group now?
Working group. Has that got a resourcing requirement? Because, like, I guess, it seems pretty clear that when we set up working parties, like the street workers one, that's actually been quite a good model. And I'd like to see us do more of that, but I'm really also mindful of it's the resourcing of the organisation. For example, at the social and community one yesterday, the healthy food action plan, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not being done, and whether we set up a working party to actually get action, is that a better way of doing it, where we identify a clear resource and ensure clear timeframes for things being done?
As you'll see from the paper, there is a desire to move to a more task force focused approach for that reason, to actually get a desired outcome, time limited, bang, and I think that people felt that with the disability issues matter, that we would rather see that as a working group, because it's going to have to report through more than one committee on different issues. So, but it will be resourced, yes.
So, but is there scope for other, like, should we be identifying now other working parties that we would like as councillors?
No.
Look,
as I've said, this is not the last word on the matter. It started off as simply the establishment of a committee to oversee the capital program. That led to a discussion about the importance of all councillors sitting around the table, having the degree of oversight around finance, performance and capital, and that's why we've made the decision, or making the decision around that. We added some other stuff to this. The disability one's been sitting on my desk for quite some time. Aaron's looking, it's about time, and but it's never the end of the matter.
The issue is we can't just keep adding work to a resource that's currently not able to support the existing work program.
Yeah, but
we have to address that at some stage.
So that was part largely what led to the decision of not having finance and performance and a capital monitoring committee.
Yeah.
And actually combining them to one instead of having two committees.
And replacing a council meeting.
Replacing a council meeting. It's really about allowing time to meet and meet well, and also allowing the staff resources to serve one, which is a committee of the whole doing both rather than three separate bodies. So it was a resourcing issue.
And we did want to have a mechanism for disability issues to report across two committees. Right, Dion. Sarah?
Just back to Pauline's point earlier about, you know, all committees and everyone doing the climate change stuff. I think the thing that's different about what's gone to ITE is its decisions on stuff that's to do with the adaptation stuff as well as the mitigation, because we've got the resolution on the reports for climate change in our decision making, our carbon emissions. I'm just wondering if we have a timeline for our new reporting structure that's going to deal with that.
That should be ready to go with these new committees in the new year.
Right.
So we're hoping to have the all programmed info council to be in line with these new committees.
Right. Glenn.
Thank you. Public excluded, can we look to build in some kind of PX filter, because we're going to be dealing obviously with huge amounts of money. We've been criticised for not being as transparent as we could have been. Can we please find a way to get ahead of this now, so that when we have papers, we're going to be live streamed, the public's here, media's here, but we don't want to suddenly shut the meeting down after 5 minutes. So can we look to actually delineate, extract bits out of reports before we...
Yeah. Again, can we report back and suggest a process and how we're going to deal with that, rather than do it off the hop now? But
we put in a good process now, which is requires councillors to consider the timing of the release of reports, and also the PX decision right at the beginning of the process. Good. But I don't think people should confuse the need for making decisions in a private space, a lack of commitment to transparency. There are a whole lot of perfectly valid reasons where you do need to take things offline, and then it's the question of releasing the information in a timely fashion.
Actually, one thing I've forgotten, entirely different matter, whether social community development could be involved with Aaron's new workforce. What is it?
It does.
Working.
It's Delta Force 1.
No, just over some of the life mark provisions and housing, etc. So
yes, I know, but it is reporting through social community.
Oh, right.
Yeah, community. Yeah, it reports to there.
Yeah, I know. I meant in the TOR stage, in terms of reference stage. So.
But it does report. I mean, you're going to set up the terms of reference, and you're on that committee. Yeah. So have your say there. All right. So we're all good. We're all good. Now we've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour.
We need to have the employment subcommittee as amended. So number 7, or the terms of reference, we do need to note as amended. Terms of reference for the Chief Executive's Performance and Employment Committee.
Okay, establishes a Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee and adopts the terms of reference as amended.
Yes, yeah, there's one should be further down about adopting.
Oh, sorry, well then it wasn't number 7, so...
Sorry, yeah, 15, my apologies, 15, so it should be as
15?
amended.
Attachment E.
Well then,
yeah.
why don't we just delete that now? Yeah. Delete that one.
So it's sort of not delete it completely. Just put as amended.
Okay. Change it to as amended, and then delete the other bit that I've just told you to add into the wrong thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you did get it.
No, don't. Right. Okay, I'll put the motion. Well, I was just... I got stopped by staff. I was about to put the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. It's carried. You're abstaining. Okay. Dion Swiggs and Yanni Johansson abstain. Yeah. That's all right. Yeah, look, thank you. Shh. Can I just please, we're almost to lunch. I'd like to move now that we resolve to exclude the public for all the reasons set out on page 307 to 309 of the agenda and pages 5 to 6 of the supplementary agenda, and the additional one that we've already done that. Seconded by Andrew. I'll put that motion. Yep.
Can you put the parking item separate, please?
The which?
Whether we vote to go into PX on the parking one.
On.
We pulled it again.
No, sorry, the parking one's been removed from the agenda. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so the item was withdrawn from the agenda, so it's not being debated today. A revised report will be considered by council at a future date. Possibly. We're still working. Probably.
Aiming for.
Anyway, we're aiming for next week.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's